This is the 100th time this little girl has been reborn. However, she doesn't feel happy at all because in the previous 99 lives, just for her unlimited magical power, she either had to sacrifice for her family or risk her life to save the world. And the end was that in none of those lives did she make it past the fateful age of 20. She truly wanted to go mad but still had to accept this cruel fate. After observing and listening for a while, the female lead discovered that in this life she was born into nobility, lovingly held in her mother's palm and surrounded by maids praising her cuteness. It seemed like a perfect start, until someone rudely pushed open the lady's bedroom door. "Master, are you here?" "It's a beautiful little girl," said the maids, competing to speak. The female lead squinted at the master they mentioned. Is he her father in this life? Then following her gaze, she saw a tall figure, a handsome face, but cold as ice. Her ancient soul, having lived 99 lives inside a newborn's body, couldn't help but tremble. The moment she saw the face of the man she would call father in her 100th life, she thought her life would soon be shattered. The female lead wondered what this time would bring: abandonment, abuse, or becoming a child who brings bad omens, or maybe being crushed by her biological father right after birth. When that man's hand reached out, she was truly nervous to the point of her heart skipping a beat. Could it be that until this world collapses again, she would do nothing and just watch everything happen? Would her soul be bound again like dust, witnessing every life fall apart before her eyes? It felt like falling into a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. The female lead didn't even know what sin she had committed to have to witness everything until the end of days. But the truth proved she was overthinking, because that hand only gently touched her cheek. Then a few sparkling tears of happiness appeared on the young father's face. "Thank you for being born safely, our youngest." Before the female lead could recover from the shock, the young lady placed her down on the bed. Then the female lead clearly saw her mother's face in this life, and she was crying too. She really is a lovely little girl. She truly couldn't explain what was happening. The script felt a bit off. Why were they all wearing such happy expressions? Could there be a plot twist? But if so, that would be great, because finally she would live a proper life. At that moment, the female lead really hoped that her 100th life would be peaceful. The couple exchanged glances for a while. Then they decided to name her Anastasia. So in this life, the female lead's name is Anastasia. She was thinking that was a pretty name when her father continued, "You have saved this world. That's the name of a hero. Sounds mighty." But this sentence turned Anastasia to stone again. A hero. Every time it's about heroes, and every time she has to live terrible lives. Just hearing that Anastasia knew she would again be treated like a hero and end up sacrificed. She felt so foolish for hoping over and over again. Surely this life would be even worse than the last. Yet somehow Anastasia experienced a very peaceful first month of life in the love of her parents. She was mentally prepared to be crowned a hero, but nothing happened. Still, it was too early for Anastasia to relax, because like before, they said she was a child protected by God and named a hero. Then they pretended to treat her well, but in the end, they were the ones worried about her power and abused her. This time, Anastasia's parents also named her after a hero. This made her certain they would force her to be sacrificed again. 1, 2, Anastasia sighed silently. She had to protect herself again. There was no other way like before. She did everything she could to scout around. The woman with jet black hair and red eyes was Anastasia's mother in this life. Since she was in the body of a newborn, whenever her mother sang her to sleep, she fell into a deep sleep immediately, even though she reminded herself to stay alert so she wouldn't be secretly sacrificed while sleeping. Next, the man who looks like a wolf with a massive body like a giant mountain with pink hair is her father in this life, and he is called the Duke. Contrary to his cold appearance, her father seems to be a doting parent, who often spoils her with a tone that could traumatize anyone. Next is the maid who is always beside this cradle, although she always wears a gentle smile with her sensitive and suspicious heart. Anastasia believes she was sent by her devilish parents to watch over her. Lost in thought, suddenly Anastasia hears loud shouting outside the door. It's her father, who seems to be talking to a doctor and is furious, shouting, "What on earth is wrong with my little Anastasia? If the child has no illness, then why doesn't she cry or even smile?" Anastasia thought it was something serious, so he was making a fuss just because she wouldn't cry. But the most serious thing is that her wolf-like father was about to take the head of that doctor just because he couldn't find out why his daughter wouldn't cry. Anastasia was terrified. She couldn't cause an innocent person to lose their life just 1 month after being born. In her previous life, there were people who didn't want to hear her cry. That's why Anastasia didn't cry, because she had almost been killed by her parents once. But in this life, if her father wants her to be a normal child, then she should live like a normal child. Your Grace, I have done my best. Our young lady is completely healthy. Please trust me just this once. Outside the door, it seemed the doctor was already crying before Anastasia did. His crying made her feel incredibly guilty. This guilt pushed Anastasia lying in the cradle to start crying loudly upon hearing the sound. A smile bloomed on his face like spring flowers. He threw down his sword. The young father hurried into the room and lifted his daughter up. My dear child, you finally cried. Your cry is so strong and pure. Satisfied, he said. Anastasia thought silently but worriedly, because bad omens always came whenever she cried loudly. But seeing her father's happy expression in this life, Anastasia really doubted if it matched her current life. To be as much like a child as possible, Anastasia continued to cry, and so she was held in her father's arms. This peaceful moment was broken by loud footsteps running down the hallway. Not long after, a child with pink hair exactly like Anastasia's father appeared in the room with a sulky expression. Father, you are so disappointing. How could you leave Laura out? Anastasia looked at the eyes filled with hidden resentment and got goosebumps. This is not good. Is this her older sister in this life? Seeing this little older sister, Anastasia felt like all the drama was about to fall on her head. In all her previous lives, the relationship between her and her siblings was never good. And just after reincarnating in this life, hearing her parents say she was the youngest she knew she would have older siblings. But because of experiences from past lives, instead of looking forward to seeing them, Anastasia felt more worried. Laurencia was very adorable with fluffy pink hair, clear eyes, and chubby cheeks. But even so, the little girl was enough to scare Anastasia pale. When she thought Laurencia was about to cry and throw a tantrum or even claw at her for attention, the girl exclaimed, "Is she really my sister? How can she be so cute?" If she could speak, Anastasia would definitely have let out a big sigh of relief. Laurencia's reaction was completely different from the siblings in Anastasia's previous lives, because the young Duke holding Anastasia in his arms knelt on one knee. Immediately, Laurencia rushed over excitedly. Wow, Lara has such an adorable little sister. She was even so thrilled that she gave her sister the nickname Sasha, just like her own nickname Lara. Since she couldn't speak yet, Anastasia could only wave her arms wildly to show that she really hated this nickname. But unexpectedly, her father thought she liked the name Sasha too. And so from that day on, fate was sealed. Anastasia had to grow up with the nickname she hated so much. Father, then, let's give Sasha some pudding. Laurencia seemed very excited. Father knows Laurencia's kind heart, but Anastasia, she is still too young to eat pudding. So it's better if you eat it for her. The young Duke patted his eldest daughter's head while comforting her. But Sasha will be sad if Lara eats it alone. Laurencia pouted and replied, I was sick before and could only eat porridge. So I was very sad because I couldn't eat cold food. If Sasha can't eat pudding now, she will be as sad as I was then. Laurencia's serious expression when saying this made Anastasia's heart pound. Is this little girl worried about me? What is this warm family feeling? Of course, no matter how much Laurencia insists, Anastasia still can't have pudding because of the recipe. So in the end, the little older sister ate the whole piece. But feeling guilty about her younger sister, Laurencia decided to make it up by giving her stuffed deer. Laurencia, are you sure? I can't sleep without it, Father. They were surprised because, after all, Laurencia was just a child. He didn't expect the little girl to be so generous with her sister. Yes, Sasha is my sister. Because I'm her older sister, I will let her borrow it, Laurencia answered firmly. The angelic expression on her face almost made Anastasia drop her guard. No. The hardships from her past life reminded her not to trust these people at all. Parents are like that, and so is the older sister. They're all just pretending to be kind. To show her dissatisfaction, Anastasia started crying loudly. But innocent Laurencia thought her sister didn't like her deer, so she changed her approach to comfort her. Sasha, do you hate the deer? Then do you like the rabbit or the tiger? I'll give you anything, so please stop crying. Laurencia was much more generous than Anastasia had imagined, even though she was little. After that, to cheer up her sister, Laurencia even played peekaboo. That sweet face, that cuteness finally completely broke down Anastasia's defensive barrier. She couldn't help but laugh. It was the first time Anastasia had laughed since she was born. So it was understandable that the young Duke and his eldest daughter showed uncontrollable excitement. Rumors that Miss Anastasia laughed while playing peekaboo quickly spread throughout the castle. The maids eagerly lined up to play this game in front of her without getting bored. Even her personal doctor joined in. Of course, Anastasia's father did too, and she only got back her peace when her mother kicked them all out. Anastasia caused her mother great psychological trauma. This was the first time she had encountered something like this. So not knowing how to respond, she thought if she didn't react, they would get bored and give up. But from her father to the doctor to the maids, none of them showed any sign of frustration. They even encouraged each other to try harder next time to make Anastasia laugh. She couldn't understand this family at all. If this life was just pretending to be kind, they were putting in way too much effort. Could it be that in this life she really was reincarnated into a family that loved her? That afternoon, after waking up, Anastasia saw a small figure at the head of her bed. It was a boy with pink hair, a perfect copy of the young Duke. Anastasia immediately guessed this was Damien. Her older brother by 5 years, although young, the maid said Damien was very much like the Duke's heir. Because of that, he was always well taught and busy. Yet this afternoon he suddenly appeared here. Of course, Anastasia added this kid to her blacklist of those to watch out for. "Anastasia, what are you thinking?" Damien happily asked, clinging to her cradle. His smiling face was just like a puppy. If he could talk, Anastasia thought she would say, "Planning how to survive, young master." Looking at her small, serious face, Damien couldn't help but reach over and pinch her cheek. Looking at her small, serious face, Damien couldn't help but reach over and poke her cheek. Then he suddenly remembered something. Right, he brought a gift. "I wonder if you like it." Although Anastasia heard about receiving a gift, she didn't seem happy at all. Honestly, she felt strange that everyone in this castle kept trying to do things for her. The gift Damien brought was a stuffed tiger. Laurencia said that Anastasia looked very cute when she smiled. "So I will give you my stuffed tiger. We've been together since we were little. Being apart feels so lonely. But I will give it to you." Anastasia couldn't help but reach out her chubby hand to touch the tiger. Before it was her sister wanting to give her favorite stuffed deer, and now her brother is giving her a stuffed tiger he's had for 5 years. To two children, both are precious. Yet they both gave them to her without any hesitation. "So Anastasia, can you smile for me?" Damien gently rubbed his little sister's head with his small hand. Then he revealed a hopeful expression. She felt even more confused. This 5-year-old brother gave her something so precious just to see her smile. What exactly is going on in this family? Is it really that important whether she smiles or not? Anastasia couldn't understand, but wanting to protect the childlike innocence before her, she forced a smile. Seeing his sister smile, Damien was stunned for a few seconds. Then he shouted joyfully, "Wow, you smiled. Everyone." Anastasia smiled. Hearing their eldest son, the young Duke, and the Duchess, along with Laurencia, eavesdropping outside, they immediately rushed in. Everyone looked happy to see their youngest daughter smiling. As for Anastasia, her feelings were very complicated. She had lived many lives and learned the lesson to always be alert about everything, especially in difficult situations. So from the moment she was reborn until now, Anastasia always wore that serious face and stayed wary of this family. But at this moment, she truly had a little hope that this 100th life would be a miracle for her. Though she had been disappointed many times, Anastasia still hoped that these people would not turn their backs on her, and that here she would have a happy life. A peaceful life went on like that. A few months later, every day, Anastasia lived surrounded by love. Parents, siblings, and servants never stopped praising how cute she was. Even her mother did not hesitate to pay 4 times the usual wage to those who sewed Anastasia's clothes because she looked so adorable wearing them. Anastasia still hadn't gotten used to this atmosphere. Today, the castle was busier than usual, all because a few days ago, Anastasia just turned 5 months old. Finally, she had a spacious area to move around instead of just that cradle. Anastasia began to crawl, and though she was still babbling, her pronunciation had improved significantly. Her father, someone who stayed by his daughter's side whenever possible, hoped to hear her say, "I love you, Dad," first. After 5 months living in this body, she accepted that she really was just an ordinary child. In her previous life, she had been chased to death. But in this life, all she needed to do was grow up healthy like a normal child. That peaceful feeling made Anastasia very happy. And in a moment of excitement, she did her first ever rollover. It was a very ordinary action, but for the 4 pairs of eyes watching her intently, it was a very important milestone. Her little brother Damien thought she could roll over much earlier than other kids. Her mother agreed, and to celebrate this, they held a grand ceremony. At the ceremony, Anastasia was placed in the seat of honor at the head of the banquet table. At first, she heard it was just a family party, but it turned out to be more extravagant than she could imagine. Her parents and siblings all prepared gifts for her. The doctor and the maids were no exception, and they all looked happy to see their young mistress growing up healthy, even better than other children. The maids felt honored to serve her because of that, and Anastasia's parents generously gave extra money to the servants on this occasion. She really found it hard to understand. It was just a baby's first rollover, yet they made such a big deal about it. Is this too extravagant? Everyone here is so affectionate that even after 5 months it still feels strange to me. After the party and the fireworks show, her parents carried Anastasia out to the balcony to witness the brilliant light display celebrating the day she learned to crawl. At that moment, her mother, with a face full of happiness, said, "Anastasia, in the future, just live healthily and grow up like this." Strange, they didn't need her to be obedient or successful. They only wanted her to be healthy and grow up. Such a simple wish doesn't seem to fit a ducal family at all. The next day, after the party ended, the castle became quite quiet again. After yesterday's party, the servants' year-end vacation began. They all felt reluctant to say goodbye to the young mistress. Only one young maid registered to work temporarily during the break, and she was now dozing off by the door. Anastasia guessed this girl was just entering puberty. After all, a child needs good sleep to grow up healthy. Maybe because it's the end of the year, everyone was quite busy. Her parents left the mansion early in the morning. Her brother was attending an important class, and her sister was sleeping because she caught a cold yesterday. No one paid attention to Anastasia. But for her, this was a good opportunity, and she decided to start trying to stand up from today. The main goal was to climb onto the sofa in the room. No sooner said than done, Anastasia crawled over to the chair. She told herself not to grow up too fast, but she still felt like moving right now. Unfortunately, just as Anastasia was about to grab the chair, someone suddenly picked her up. "Little lady, are you having fun?" The person holding Anastasia was a middle-aged woman dressed as a maid. She only managed to respond with a small "uh-huh," but she had never seen this face before. The woman said the lady asked her to come pick up Anastasia, but clearly her parents had already left early. And this maid didn't even wake the young maid who was dozing by the door. At that moment, a wave of fear rose inside Anastasia. She remembered having experienced something similar once or twice before. Although this was just a servant, she seemed too suspicious. So naturally, Anastasia started crying loudly. Unfortunately, she had guessed the worst-case scenario, because immediately after a handkerchief soaked in sedative was pressed down on her. "I will take good care of the little lady, so please just sleep a little." That was the last thing Anastasia heard before losing consciousness. The peaceful feeling she had in the castle over the past months had made her let down her guard a lot. And the result was that she was targeted by bad people. Anastasia gradually woke up because of an uncomfortable shaking sensation. The first thing she saw was the face of a completely unfamiliar man. He was carrying her and running fast. The ducal estate was already far behind on the road. Got it. Anastasia realized she had been kidnapped. She could only silently blame herself. Living with so much love for 5 months had made her careless and unguarded. Anastasia tried to stay calm and hoped this was just a normal child kidnapping case. But if these bad people wanted to kill her, what would happen then? Her soul would get trapped alone again, witnessing everything until the world ended before she could come back to life. In this life, not even half a year old Anastasia certainly didn't want that horrible scenario to happen. She'd rather grow up and become a sacrifice than die as a 5-month-old baby. But what should she do now? That was the question Anastasia was most uncertain about. Should she just let the kidnappers take her to see who's behind it, or use her power to teleport instantly to save her life? Was this just a simple kidnapping targeting the Duke's wealth and power, or had someone discovered her secret identity and abilities? Whatever it was, this was definitely worth investigating. With that thought, Anastasia decided to just let the kidnappers take her instead of using her power. But then she thought about her parents and siblings crying at home because she was kidnapped. She felt a bit touched again. Over time, she had truly grown attached to this family, and Anastasia didn't want them to worry. However, her next plan to ambush the kidnappers was destroyed when suddenly from the opposite side an arrow whistled through the air. The arrow pierced his left thigh, causing him to stumble and fall backward, but his hand still held Anastasia tightly. "What's going on?" The kidnapper gritted his teeth, suppressing the pain, and told himself to shut up. Another sharp voice rang out, but Anastasia recognized it was the voice of a kid. She opened her eyes in confusion and saw that in front of her was a child with blonde hair, proud and determined eyes. Most importantly, though, just a child, he boldly pointed a sword at the kidnapper. "What do you dare to do?" The kid continued to question him. "The young lady in your hands is my fiancée today, and you intend to kidnap my betrothed." Both Anastasia and the kidnapper were confused by this boy. She was confused because she didn't know since when she became the other party's fiancée. The kidnapper was confused because the person who just attacked him was a child. "Don't get in my way," he growled, suppressing the pain as he pulled the arrow embedded in his thigh out. But at this moment, soldiers were already chasing from behind. The kidnapping plan was discovered, and the soldiers were approaching faster than the kidnapper expected. He decided to ignore the blonde boy and ran headlong ahead. But the boy was determined to keep close behind him. And surprisingly, though, just a boy, his speed closely matched that of the grown kidnapper. If you don't want to lose something, then obediently hand over that child to me. The threat came from the mouth of a child only about 5 or 6 years old, but carried great power. Damn it, don't chase me anymore, I'm just pushed into this by circumstances. The kidnapper growled, but the boy had no intention of stopping. Don't give me any lame excuses, let's end this here. Anastasia was a bit overwhelmed. This boy looked about the same age as her brother Damien, but spoke so decisively and coldly. Moreover, his sword stance was very stable, not like a child at all. She also realized this person had magical power, and it was quite strong. Who exactly is this kid that both his swordsmanship and magic are so powerful? After closely pursuing the kidnapper, the boy timed it perfectly and swung his sword, immediately knocking him down. Anastasia in his arms was so scared her face turned pale. This isn't good, she might fall. She had to use magic to protect herself. But before Anastasia could act, she fell into another gentle embrace. She was so scared she squeezed her eyes shut for a long time before daring to open them slightly. The blonde boy was holding her tightly, worried expression. Little one, are you okay? You must be very surprised, huh? Are you hurt anywhere? Not crying like this means you're okay, right? Of course, Anastasia was fine. It was just the situation that had been too sudden. The blonde boy seemed completely focused on her and didn't notice the kidnapper slowly getting up, which was understandable. After all, he's just a kid. No matter how good the skills, it's hard to avoid moments of carelessness. Now Anastasia had to act. Even though she was in a child's body, she could still barely use her magic. So the kidnapper was defeated by her before he could reach the boy. Seeing this, the boy looked very confused. What, I didn't even get to do anything and he's already down? Although the boy was saved, Anastasia's condition was not very good. After using magic, her lungs felt like they were about to burst. Just as she feared, she would have to be very careful using her power with this small body from now on. The boy was very worried when he saw her face flush red. Oh, little one, were you startled? Or have you caught a cold? Then he took off his cloak and put it on Anastasia, comforting her. It's okay, it will warm up soon. Anastasia felt a wave of warmth, her eyelids heavy, wanting to sleep right now. At that moment, the soldiers and servants had arrived. The kidnapper had also been subdued. Even Damien had come. Seeing his sister's condition, he couldn't hold back his trembling. Anastasia, wake up, your brother is here. The kidnapper started struggling when he saw the little duchess. Sir, please spare my life, it's just a misunderstanding, I can explain. At that moment, an expression appeared on Damien's face that Anastasia had never seen before. He ordered the servant to drag him away. Until my father returns, interrogate him thoroughly. Anastasia only woke up after an unknown amount of time. She vaguely saw her parents' worried faces. After their daughter opened her eyes, they hurriedly called for a doctor to check her. My dear, you must have been very scared. I wish I had been by your side then, but His Majesty had ordered otherwise, because the young duke seemed to blame himself a lot. Of course, Anastasia did not blame him. After all, her father was a duke. How could he ignore an imperial summons? Besides, she wasn't injured. Losing consciousness was just from overexerting herself. However, of course, Anastasia's parents didn't know that. So they seemed very guilty and kept apologizing to her. To comfort the young lady, Anastasia had no choice but to stretch out her tiny hands and try to grasp her mother's index finger. She had never wanted to grow up faster than at this moment. The next day, a team of knights personally selected by Anastasia's father arrived to present themselves to her. Their imposing presence made her understandably fearful. It turned out her father feared another kidnapping attempt, so he formed a special knight escort to protect his youngest daughter. It was said the mastermind behind the kidnapping was just a couple working at the Duke's mansion. Their son had debts beyond his means, so they hatched a bad plan. Seeing the Duke and Duchess give Anastasia so much money, they kidnapped her during the year-end holidays, intending to ransom her. Fortunately, Damien's friend found her and stopped the plan in time. It was said the two servants were then kicked out, badly beaten. Her parents also said they handled it as leniently as possible. Anyway, having more guards escorting her was good. Good for both Damien and Laurencia, too. But 20 knights just to escort a baby was excessive. Anastasia was truly overwhelmed by that. The young duke couldn't understand the silent plea of his little daughter, so he enthusiastically introduced them all. Anastasia, these are all the knights who have sworn loyalty to you, so please encourage them a little. Anastasia was speechless. What was her father expecting from a child not even 6 months old? They wouldn't feel happy or excited to be encouraged by a baby. But reality proved that was just her own thinking, because all 20 knights seemed to be eagerly awaiting it. This atmosphere made Anastasia unable to disobey her father, so she reluctantly babbled a few sounds, a UOAI meaning yes. Please take care of me. Just a few meaningless babbles from a baby, but it energized the knights as if they had been recharged. They shouted together loudly, "We will do our best, young lady. I hope we will get along well." 1 month had passed since the night squad was established. The number of servants in Anastasia's room had increased significantly. 2 people were always assigned to guard outside her door. Because her body had grown a bit and her strength had increased, Anastasia could easily read their actions. But after all, she was still only about 7 months old. Accessing information might only truly become easier after her first birthday. Anastasia sometimes still thought about that kidnapping. On the day she was kidnapped, her parents had left early with unpleasant expressions. While they rarely left the house together at the same time. Of course, that kidnapping was purely for money. But Anastasia also suspected that her family had some hostile forces. There's no reason for them to deploy such excessive protection just because a child lives in the mansion. Out of curiosity, Anastasia even wanted to use a bit of her power to probe. But thinking about her illness and high fever and her parents wiping her tears, she felt it was better to stop. But living such a peaceful life made Anastasia feel restless. After all, she was born to prevent the world's downfall. In every life, she couldn't just sit still and do nothing. Today, as she struggled to stand up by holding onto a chair, Anastasia heard a familiar voice. She turned around and saw Damien had already finished school. She immediately shifted to her fastest speed to crawl and then jumped into his arms. Damien seemed very excited. "Wow, how can you crawl so fast?" "My Anastasia is growing up too fast." After living in this body for 7 months, Anastasia began to love her family, including this older brother. But today she noticed that the gentle expression on Damien's face held a hint of awkwardness. "Anastasia, you know my friend really wants to meet you. He met you last time, remember? My brother's friend." In Anastasia's mind, an image formed of a young upright face with golden blonde hair. "Oh, if it's that boy, then I really want to meet him." So Anastasia began nodding eagerly. Damien wasn't sure if he understood his sister's meaning, so he carefully asked again. "So, Anastasia, you want to meet my friend again?" Anastasia answered seriously. "Actually, since last time I already felt something different about that boy. His magical power is truly amazing, but the key is that even though they met for the first time, I feel like I've seen him somewhere before." After being reincarnated many times, Anastasia had encountered familiar faces in different lives. Precisely, each person's soul has its own unique wavelength. Sometimes when she met such people, she would pass by and simply think she had seen them in a past life. But that little blonde duke was different. He was not only familiar, but also stirred a strange feeling inside Anastasia. This compelled her to want to see him again and investigate more thoroughly. "Sir Mikai will be here soon," the servant informed Damien. By now, the carriage of that blonde boy had stopped in front of the mansion. "Young Duke, we've arrived." The child carefully stepped down from the carriage, but his eyes showed an excitement he couldn't hide. "Here already?" That was fast. "Good now. Where should I go to meet the little lady?" Before Mikai entered his sister's room, Damien seriously reminded him many times to be polite and gentle with his sister. When the door opened, young Duke Mikai saw her sitting on a chair with a solemn look like a little princess flanked by 2 maids. He excitedly rushed forward. "Such a cute little baby, you look wonderful." Anastasia opened her eyes wide, studying this boy. She thought she would remember something upon seeing him again, but now she wasn't sure. She only knew a handful of people in her 2,000 years of life anyway. Seeing Mikai grinning foolishly, Damien reminded him, "What are you doing? Mikai, you haven't even introduced yourself yet." "Anastasia of mine is that doll, my beloved little Anastasia. She's the young lady of a duchy." Watching Damien boast about his sister was like a peacock spreading its tail. That shows how close he is to Anastasia. Normally, Damien is described as calm and serious, but only when with Anastasia does she see him as a real kid. And Mikai was also a kid pretending to be mature. Suddenly, he seriously took Anastasia's hand and introduced himself. "This is not the first time, but I'm honored to meet you, little lady. I am Mikai, young Duke from the great Duchy of Leventis." After speaking, Mikai bowed his head and kissed Anastasia's tiny hand. She was very surprised to see this child act like a gentleman, while Damien looked as if he had been struck by lightning out of a clear sky. He immediately shouted, "Hey, Mikai. I haven't even had the chance to kiss that girl's hand once." After that, Mikai Leventis became an honored guest at this castle. He is the sole heir of the Duke of Leventis. Since their second meeting, he spent more than half a month staying at the young Duke's mansion. The Duke of Leventis was very busy with his political matters, but he decided to study alongside his childhood friend, who was also Damien. As a result, the recent gossip among the maids was all about Mikai to the point that Anastasia heard about him more than her own family. At first, she thought Mikai was only close with her brother, but over the past half-month, he almost came to see her every day after class, and today was no exception. When Mikai rushed over, Anastasia felt a few cold droplets splash on her. She rubbed her eyes and mumbled a few dissatisfied words. Sorry, water splashed on me. I came to see the young lady, so I washed up a little beforehand." Wow, Anastasia silently admired how thoughtful that was. Mikai didn't look like a 6-year-old child at all. Like before today, he brought a very large, high-quality ruby as a gift. She couldn't remember exactly when Mikai's gift attacks began, only that it started when he heard the maid say, "Not everyone got to see the young lady smile." Since then, he started bringing things he thought were good, from teddy bears to gold jewelry and precious stones, but it had no effect. It was useless. Anastasia just smiled at her brother Ryan. Damien proudly said, "Me too. I have made her smile many times," Laurencia chimed in. So thanks to their challenge, Anastasia and Mikai became even more competitive. The frequency of gifts increased, and the value of the gifts also steadily rose. She could only sigh deeply, not understanding why he would bring such things as gifts for a little kid. "You're sighing?" Mikai asked in surprise. Anastasia lazily ignored him. She just wanted to quickly improve her ability to walk and her babbling speech. This was the 100th time she had tried with the baby, but this time it seemed to progress slower than ever, and it limited Anastasia's use of magic, so she was very anxious. As Anastasia reached out to grab a nearby chair to stand up, Mikai suddenly slipped the ruby into her coat pocket. The weight of the stone caused Anastasia to fall backward. The maids and Mikai all panicked. Her butt hit the floor, the stone fell out of her coat pocket, and at this rate, Anastasia would hit her head on the ground. Fortunately, the young duke acted quickly and caught her. Mikai looked embarrassed. "Sorry, baby. I just wanted to give it to you, but didn't expect it to make you slip." Oh, it was then that Anastasia saw the ruby rolling on the floor. She had just thought she was so useless she couldn't even get up. Turns out it was because of this kid that she fell. Anastasia was so angry she clenched both her fists. Her cheeks flushed bright red. She pointed at Mikai's face and babbled, "Don't like means don't like at all." The maids didn't understand what Anastasia was saying, but Mikai froze for a few seconds. "Did you just say you don't like me?" "Ah oui." Anastasia turned away, acting spoiled, and said, "Go away." "Oh no, I was wrong. I thought you would look really cute holding the big ruby. Don't say you don't like me again." Their back and forth surprised the servants a lot. They didn't understand how young Duke Mikai could understand the seemingly meaningless words of their young lady, which only made Anastasia more annoyed since this person could understand her babbling that even her own family had struggled to comprehend. Seeing Anastasia silent, Mikai changed his approach to comfort her. "Baby, do you want to practice walking?" "Let me help you, little princess." Anastasia replied that she didn't want to, but baby, you're really good at talking. "How can you speak so well when you're only 7 months old? I can really help you learn to walk. I learned to walk when I was only 6 months old." Mikai deliberately emphasized the words 6 months, and this really had an effect on Anastasia. She felt insulted. At 7 months old, she still couldn't stand steadily yet. Mikai at just 6 months could already walk. Seeing that she seemed to have calmed the baby, Mikai continued to brag about how good he was at this. And finally, Anastasia gave in when Mikai opened his hand. She took it and quietly told herself that she accepted his help only because she needed to grow up faster. That's all. The maids were very amazed. They kept marveling as they saw the little lady stand up on her own 2 feet. Of course, it was still thanks to Mikai's help, but the truth was, she was standing steadily. Even Anastasia herself was surprised to see that she could stand so firmly. "See, I told you, I said I could help you stand up." Mikai was very delighted because she could stand up now. "So maybe you can walk too." Then he stepped back a few steps and gently pulled Anastasia's hand. She originally thought she could never walk right away, but Anastasia's feet really moved, and she was taking her first steps. Mikai and the maids in the room were the first to witness this important milestone, so they were very excited. Anastasia didn't think much until she heard a thud from the door. Turning around, she saw Damien standing there with an incredulous expression. That sound was from him dropping the book in Anastasia's hands. His voice was a bit shaky when he called his sister's name. She vaguely realized something was wrong. Oh no. Why did Big Brother get out of school early today? Mikai, unaware of the problem, kept proudly boasting. "Look, the little lady is holding my hand and walking well now." Anastasia wanted to stop, but because she was in a hurry, she actually walked even faster. Mikai anxiously said, "No, baby. If you keep going like that, you'll fall just like earlier. Hearing this, Damien rushed over, took Anastasia, and hugged her tightly. His face was very bad now. Anastasia, did you fall? The maids dared not lie and just replied that the little lady didn't fall hard. She didn't cry and everything was fine. Why did she fall? Damien's attitude got even more serious. Afraid the maids would be blamed, Mikai took responsibility. Damien, it's my fault. I was just going to give the little lady a gift, but Damien didn't have the patience to hear me out. His eyes were full of anger. The key point was Mikai caused his little sister to fall. That was enough. Mikai still wanted to explain that Anastasia didn't fall hard and he caught her head. But after hearing that, Damien's anger flared up even more. She almost hit her head. Anastasia tried to hold on to her brother's shirt, but couldn't stop his anger. So Damien, a 6-year-old child, loudly declared that from now on, Mikai Leventis should not come here to see Anastasia anymore. Anastasia was a little shocked. How did something that wasn't serious turn into this? It seemed Mikai felt the same way as she did. So he wanted to step forward to explain, but was shouted down by Damien. Enough! Get out of here now! That was the first time Anastasia saw her brother with such a rude expression. This situation turned into a more serious argument than she imagined. And it was clear Mikai was deeply hurt by her brother's words. Right. It's good you have a little sister, he muttered, overheard by them. Damien seemed panicked. This was bad. Both kids were hurt. The important thing was they were hurt because neither of them behaved like normal children at all. It couldn't be denied that they were both more capable than kids their age. Or more precisely, they were even more mature than some adults who weren't fully grown up. So in this situation, they didn't know how to resolve things like children should. If they just left things as they were, the cracks would only deepen over time. Anastasia really didn't want her brother to lose a good friend just over a childish matter, so she decided to do something she didn't like at all to save the situation. From Damien's perspective, he liked spending time reading books with his siblings after school, liking to doze off with his siblings to the sound of reading instead of lullabies, liking to snack together when Laurencia's stomach started growling. It sounds ordinary, but this was Damien's favorite daily routine. But ever since Mikai saved his youngest sister from the kidnapping, Damien voluntarily gave up his habit, giving up time with Anastasia to his friend. From Mikai's perspective, his only relative was his grandfather, who was always busy with political work. Mikai found babies adorable but didn't know how to handle them. He was just a 6-year-old kid skilled with swords, and his jokes had no ill intent at all. And from Anastasia's point of view, she could conclude that everything was her fault. After all, her Bibo language that only Mikai understood was the root of the problem. The truth was, she called Mikai's name before she could say the names of Laurencia's parents, or Damien. They were so sad that they called her name all day, and today Anastasia's first steps were in the arms of a stranger like Mikai, not family. So it was understandable that Damien acted that way out of frustration. In short, Anastasia felt she was the most to blame. So she started crying when she saw the situation escalate. Anastasia rarely cried or laughed, so when she burst into tears like that, everything else seemed less important. Anastasia babbled while crying, but Damien didn't understand what she was saying. Reluctantly, he had to ask Mikai for help, because somehow only he understood what the baby was saying. The baby said it was scary and didn't like it. Mikai replied awkwardly. So the two 6-year-old boys panicked and both apologized to Anastasia. But that wasn't what she wanted. What she wanted was for them to make up. So Anastasia grabbed her brother's shirt. Then she pointed toward Mikai. The two kids faced each other and the atmosphere became even more awkward. Finally, Mikai spoke first. I'm sorry for putting your beloved little sister in danger. Because Mikai spoke first, Damien found it easier to say something too. Me too. Sorry for telling you not to come here anymore. I did it out of jealousy because you could become close to my own sister. Hey, Damien. Mikai scratched his head shyly and continued. I don't know much about how to treat babies because I don't have any siblings. So can you teach me? I'll do whatever you say because you seem familiar with the little lady. And if you say I shouldn't touch the little lady without permission, I'll follow that too. Mikai was very sincere. He really was just a kid and hadn't realized his joke could be so dangerous. And Damien, being generous, couldn't stay mad at his best friend in this situation. Since he had apologized, the two kids shook hands and made peace. Thanks to Anastasia's mental effort, both felt relieved. And she was happy because whether it was her brother or his best friend, they were honest kids. But she had cried too much just now, so Anastasia's eyelids were now heavy. Sleep came quickly, and she only remembered that both Damien and Mikai wished her good night before she closed her eyes. The thing is, she had already fallen asleep in her brother's arms, but suddenly woke up in some strange place. It was pitch dark around her, and all she could hear was the dripping sound of water. Anastasia guessed she was dreaming but didn't know how to wake up. Then suddenly she heard a cry for help. Anastasia turned her head and saw a cocoon wrapped tightly in cloth and bound with many chains. The desperate cry echoed from that strange object. Her consciousness was very hazy, but her body moved on its own toward the strange object. When Anastasia stood in front of it, her body started trembling in fear. "I am your only understanding," a voice inside the cocoon spoke. At that moment, Anastasia's hand no longer obeyed her brain's control. It automatically reached out. How could this thing claim it understood her? Could it be that it had been reborn hundreds of times or something like that? Anastasia's small hand touched the cocoon, causing it to shatter instantly. A blinding light burst forth, temporarily blinding Anastasia. Then, when she clearly saw what stood before her, an unconscious panic and unease surged strongly within her. Because it was a baby. A baby exactly like Anastasia herself. That baby was the owner of the voice that had been echoing all this time. Then it spoke again. "Never forget I am the only one." Anastasia widened her eyes, looking at the other, more precisely the creature that looked exactly like her. It floated slowly toward her and reached out its hand. But before it could touch her, Anastasia was distracted by a series of urgent calls from someone. The voice was very familiar. Finally, thanks to it, she was able to wake up. The one calling her awake was Mikai. In his hand was a magical orb. Beside him were Damien's and Laurencia's parents. They all shared the same expression, panic and worry. Anastasia was confused. Didn't she just sleep and have a nightmare? It shouldn't have caused everyone to be in such a state. But then the Duchess began to cry and moved closer to the cradle. Through her mother's words, Anastasia was shocked to realize she had been unconscious for a whole week due to a continuous high fever. The whole family was worried sick. Especially Laurencia and Damien, who seemed to have cried their eyes red and swollen. "Stay away so I can take away your pain for you, okay? So don't get sick anymore," Laurencia said while crying. "Laurencia, if you're going to get sick instead of little sister, then I'll get sick instead of you too." Damien immediately said, "All right then, if it means the kids can be healthy, then I'll suffer being sick." The Duke then hugged his two little children. Mikai stood aside, feeling a pang of sadness seeing such a harmonious and warm family scene. But just when he felt down, a warm towel was gently placed over his head. Then Anastasia's father hugged Mikai and carefully dried his hair. "Thank you, Mikai. It's all thanks to you." "It's nothing, sir. It's just something I could do. At times like this, no need to deny it." Mikai, while Anastasia was sick, traveled far to the Grand High Priest and brought him here. So that's why Mikai was soaking wet like this. Apparently, Anastasia was cursed by some unknown force. Everyone was very surprised when the Grand High Priest reported the illness. And thanks to Mikai bringing the medicine, she was able to safely wake up. So the entire Grand Duke's family was very grateful to this child. Anastasia listened quietly as they talked, and it seemed she had to look at Mikai in a new light. If it was the place of the Grand High Priest, the manor was really far away, and Mikai traveling there alone didn't seem like the style of a 6-year-old child at all. Anyway, Anastasia once again owed her life to Mikai. However, there was still one thing troubling her, the curse her parents had just mentioned. She had lived through 100 lifetimes thinking she was almost immune to such filthy things. But not only was she dragged into a nightmare, someone even dared to steal the power stored in her body. Indeed, even after reincarnating into the 100th life, it still wasn't peaceful. The warmth in this mansion almost made her forget that cruel fate. That was an absolute rule in Anastasia's life. She had to grow up even faster to be able to use her power properly. Thinking of this, Anastasia unconsciously clenched her fists. Just then, the Duchess bent down and looked at her with tearful eyes. "My youngest daughter, please grow up strong." After saying that, she hugged Anastasia tightly, seeming to cry again. Anastasia's heart softened, forgetting that before thinking about any grand power, at least she had to reassure this family. About a month after that nightmare, Anastasia often fell into deep sleep. This was the first time in thousands of years she had experienced this. Her body continued to develop steadily like other normal children, but even using a little power made her slightly feverish. Fortunately, Anastasia didn't have any more nightmares or uninvited guests. Time went on, and now it was 9 months since she was born. By this time, Anastasia could walk on her own 2 feet. She carefully took one step at a time, and each time she was about to fall, her father caught her in his arms. The fact that she could take 3 steps at once made him happier than capturing a vast territory. As for Anastasia, besides staying cautious, she gradually began to enjoy this life. Although walking 3 steps at once was the greatest achievement she could manage then to her family, it was already quite impressive. At the same time, Anastasia felt happy, because as her body grew, using magic power became easier. It would help her more in gathering information. Thanks to that, Anastasia learned that a festival would be held in April and that young Duke Mikai had scheduled a visit. She even eavesdropped on her brother Damien's lessons and gained more knowledge about the family's symbols and history. So it was only 9 months after birth that she found out her family name was Endermill. Earlier, Anastasia was stressed about not growing fast enough, but now that she had gathered more information, she felt relieved. Emma Ender. Blank suddenly spoke seriously. Our youngest can walk now. How about you others? Have you been training diligently? He said this to the knights, but Anastasia couldn't see any connection between her walking and whether the knights trained or not. Yet those people seemed very tense, though nothing compared to the young lady. We are trying very hard. We will definitely try harder not to fall behind the young lady. Speechless again. Why were they using a child like Anastasia as their benchmark? I heard that during the last promotion from Viscount to Grand Duke, someone fell behind. The Duke Ender. Blank's voice still sounded very serious. Spring has arrived now, so we should check the knight's skills after such a long time, right? Thinking and doing immediately. So Anastasia's father scheduled a martial arts tournament at the April festival, requiring all castle knights to be ready. Most importantly, the main figure at the April festival was none other than Anastasia. In a gentle, warm setting, Testala's soft voice sounded. Since our youngest's hair is still short, she needs to wear a hat to look cute, right? Or maybe a ribbon that matches her dress would be adorable, too. April was approaching with the festival and tournament, giving Testala a headache over choosing an outfit for her precious daughter. She pondered, gently stroking the fabric. It's finally spring, so maybe using yellow fabric would be good. The maid nearby tilted her head and softly asked, "What kind of clothes did the lady wear when she was little?" Testa. La paused briefly, her eyes reflecting memories. For me, my first dress was probably white with golden edges. Hearing this, the maid pointed to the white fabric with golden shimmer and beautiful flowers. Then yellow would suit the young lady well. Testa. La sat in her chair with 2 maids behind her, whispering admiringly. The young lady looks just like the lady, with a pretty face and very graceful. The image of Testala appeared in their minds as elegant and noble beyond compare. One maid softly said, "With jet-black hair and even ruby eyes like hers." Testa smiled shyly but brightly. Anastasia would probably be very happy to know who she resembles. My lady once said she wanted another child like me. Under the soft light in the luxurious room, Thetla ran her hand over the intricately embroidered fabric, her eyes gentle with a hint of nostalgia. "All right," in a soft but firm voice, "let the girl wear a yellow dress for the martial arts tournament. At this age, wearing bright yellow looks very easy on her." Seeing my lady had decided, the maids quickly praised, "So delicate, she looks as cute as a chick." Oh dear, I was actually thinking she'd look like the Lin Qiu flower. The tailor, silently listening until now, suddenly chimed in enthusiastically. "My lady, don't worry, I will prepare a dress as beautiful as the Lin Qiu flower and as cute as a chick for the audience." Thetla looked at the tailor. "Can you really do that? Then do your best." She smiled brightly, pointing to the vibrant floral fabric neatly placed on the chair. Her tone determined. "Our youngest still has too few dresses. Might as well make a few more while we're at it, right?" The sudden workload made the tailor both happy and sweaty. She stammered, "What?" Standing before the sparkling fabrics, Thetla was calm, beautiful dresses. A radiant smile spread across her face, her eyes sparkling with confidence. Thetla gently asked, "You can do it, right?" The festive atmosphere gradually spread throughout the mansion as news about the martial arts tournament was officially announced. Preparations for the festival became more lively due to the sudden announcement that the martial arts tournament would be held in the training yard. 2 knights full of vigor raised their hands with determination, shouting loudly, "I will definitely win!" Guinevere was just as spirited. "I have swung my sword 3,000 times every day preparing for that competition." The young lady, because the knights volunteered to train day and night, had become ill and behaved strangely. Anastasia was completely helpless before their passionate thoughts. In the room bathed in soft sunlight, the maids sat gathered around the embroidery frame, their cheeks flushed from sharing secret stories. One hesitated. "What should I embroider now?" The one beside her smiled softly and replied, "I plan to embroider flowers along with the name of that knight who said he liked me last time." The atmosphere suddenly turned sweet. Each began to confess their first feelings, their cheeks blushing as they opened their hearts. Love is probably truly beautiful, making everyone happy and filling the entire mansion with laughter. Perhaps it was springtime, a good day and month, so everyone looked very happy. Time passed until mid-April when the people eagerly flocked to the Duke's mansion to attend the festival. Today was not only the spring festival, but also the day of the martial arts tournament. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was completely different. A maid was carefully feeding each spoonful to young Lady Anastasia. Little lady, but a few drops of food fell, almost staining Anastasia's yellow dress. She panicked. Oops! But before it could fall, another maid quickly caught it, making everyone hold their breath. The dining room suddenly tensed like a stretched string. The senior servant pointed sternly, scolding, "Today is an important day. I've reminded you over and over to be very careful." The young maid babbled, bowing her head, "I'm sorry, very sorry." The scolding voice grew harsher. What if it had stained the dress, then what? This is the dress specially made for my lady today. Pull yourself together. Anastasia's yellow dress received many compliments from my lady and the maids. So adorable, truly our beloved daughter. Indeed, from the first time I met the young lady, I couldn't stop admiring her cuteness. The yellow color only enhanced the girl's charm. My lady personally ordered it. Thetla was very pleased with her daughter's dress. "Very well, I will pay you double." The tailor was so moved she almost cried. Clutching her hands, she exclaimed, "Thank you, my lady." Meanwhile, two maids were still arguing. "If you had dirtied the young lady's clothes, maybe you and I would have been kicked out today." Anastasia silently watched their worry, thinking to herself that at least that didn't happen. The maid sobbed, "I'm sorry." Anastasia was puzzled. "Why is everyone so strange today? I don't want to see them argue anymore." She waved her hand. Bibo, the young maid, was stunned. "Is the young lady comforting me?" Seeing Anastasia wave at her, the maid was so touched, she covered her face, her eyes sparkling as if glowing. "Our little lady really is so kind. I wonder who her partner will be today. So jealous. Who could it be after all?" The older servant turned and interrupted. "He'll be here soon. Go clean up quickly." Anastasia froze. "So my partner is the reason you caused trouble?" All eyes turned toward the door that had just quietly moved as the maid's excited voice rang from the hallway. "The young master is here." Dazed and amazed, it seems the little lady's partner has arrived. "Yes, please come in." Young Master Mikai, with his golden hair, stepped inside. Anastasia sighed as she watched the door open. She often met with bad luck. Her expression was calm but weary in moments like this. Anastasia let out a mysterious sigh as if she always ended up losing. At that moment, Mikai appeared with a cheerful smile, dressed sharply in formal attire. "Hello, little lady Anastasia." He glanced at him. "I heard he has already arrived at the Duke's place. I haven't seen him for about a month." Mikai smiled and continued, "Lucky me today, I'm the little lady's partner." Hearing this, Anastasia looked away, showing a disdainful and contemptuous expression. Mikai squeezed his hand slightly, his gaze darkening. "Last time the baby seemed uncomfortable being held by me, right? At the Duke's place, I've been practicing diligently." His voice was gentle, but a bit worried. The memory of last time still troubled him, but he didn't give up. So he knelt on one knee, extending his hand to Anastasia. "May I be your knight, little lady?" Anastasia froze. Mikai, with blonde hair and purple eyes, was looking at her seriously under the bright sunlight. The announcer stood straight on the high steps, her deep blue dress hugging her noble figure lips, slightly moving, her authoritative voice echoing through the square. "All contestants listen carefully. The champion of the martial arts tournament will not only receive a cash prize, but also be granted an honorable opportunity." Everyone attending was excited about the martial arts match and the honor mentioned by the lady, with all knights watching intently. The announcer's words rang out along with a figure appearing. "That honor is the trumpet sounding throughout the great hall." Paper petals fluttered down in the air, their bright colors signaling an important upcoming event. On the high podium, a noblewoman in a deep blue gown stood solemnly, her eyes sweeping over all the contestants below. Beside her, knights in blue uniforms stood in neat rows, holding the kingdom's banners, ready to declare the opening. The atmosphere was solemn, all eyes focused on the podium where glory and honor would be decided. Amid the lively atmosphere, Laurencia appeared with a radiant smile. She gently tugged the hand of the pale, pink-haired boy beside her, who looked mature and gentle, holding a bouquet of white tulips like a pure gift from Laurencia Enderblang. Tesla's voice rang out along with steady footsteps. "The winner's honor will be commemorated with flowers presented by Anastasia Enderblang." Following Tesla's pointed hand, all eyes turned toward the stands. At the same time, amid the clear announcement, Mikai stepped onto the stage, carrying the little lady, though Anastasia seemed uncomfortable. She muttered irritably, saying she had practiced hard, yet the baby-holding skills were still poor. She couldn't bear it was so uncomfortable. The knights below became extremely excited as soon as the little lady appeared. Guinevere said excitedly, "Little lady, we will definitely receive flowers from you." Arthur clenched his fist, eyes sparkling, confident that victory would be theirs. Lady Laura and Lancelot showed obvious helplessness, clearing their throats. "Don't worry, we will bring flowers back for young Master Damien." Then the announcer gently approached the four children, softly stroking Laurencia's head, and asked, "So, do you want to say a few words to encourage the knights?" Laurencia, in a pretty pink dress, smiled and waved. "Lara wishes everyone good luck." Damien also smiled. "I believe in that promise of victory. I hope no one disappoints me." The announcer turned to Anastasia gently. "Next is Anastasia." Startled, me. In her head sounded a heavy sigh. "A baby only 10 months old? What can she do?" "I can only babble." Mikai, who was holding her, seemed to hear her silent complaints and chuckled softly. "Don't worry, little lady, I will translate for you." Anastasia was helpless. "That's not the issue." But when she saw their faces lighting up like stars and the expectant eyes of the fragile defense knights, her heart suddenly crumbled, losing all strength to resist no way out. Anastasia waved towards the stands and Bibo a few times, and Mikai next to her translated, "Did everyone hear what the little lady said? The little lady wants everyone to win." The crowd shouted in unison, "Yes, we will do our best." Amidst the cheers, Anastasia sighed deeply. So exhausting. Before relaxing, Mikai lowered his head and whispered, "Little lady, hold her tight and ask if she wants to say anything to me." Anastasia held Mikai, smiling as she explained, "Because I'm joining in too." Anastasia was surprised. Images of Mikai among the tall knights immediately appeared in her mind. He intended to jump in and play with those big knights. Remembering the last kidnapping incident, she had to admit his skills were far better than most knights here, but the physical and size differences couldn't be overlooked. She wondered if he was hurt after all. He was only 6 years old. While Anastasia was still worried, Mikai pouted, "Don't you support me? If you cheer me on, I'll surely win." Letting out a tired sigh, Anastasia's small hands suddenly grabbed Mikai's and pulled him unaware of their speed. She looked at him with wide eyes and stammered, "Don't get hurt." Mikai laughed and translated automatically, "Don't get hurt. Isn't that what winning is about?" Hearing that, Anastasia gave him a disdainful look. Seeing her expression, Mikai couldn't help but laugh out loud. He set Anastasia down, slapped his chest confidently, and declared, "I have to work hard to show you how cool I am." His golden hair shimmered as he smiled with determination. "It's almost time I have to go, but I'll be back." "But little miss, I'll be super cool if I win, right?" Anastasia stared blankly at that smile, didn't answer, and turned away, pretending not to hear. Mikai laughed at that. Mrs. pretending not to hear again. Anastasia thought to herself, "I didn't expect him to remember that cool was only for my brother." When Mikai happened to pass by, she looked up and exclaimed, "Cool brother is so awesome." Mikai pointed at himself. "Me?" Anastasia denied it. "No. Kids really are competitive." A loudspeaker cut through her thoughts. "Our tournament is about to begin," announced the host. Anastasia immediately looked toward the stage. "Looks like it's about to start. Where's my dad?" The host disappeared. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Laurencia!" Anastasia. Anastasia was stunned. Why is Dad's voice coming from the arena floor? At the same time, Rogato's waving arm and dazzling aura appeared. He was in his knight's outfit with a wooden sword at his side, waving to his 2 daughters, saying, "Your father will definitely win the flower." Anastasia was completely speechless at this situation. This was exactly like a match of big kids with Rogato standing below the stage, waving excitedly. "My dear children, are you watching?" The shouting from the stands was helpless. "Your father being here is really dangerous." Anastasia, in Damien's arms, frowned slightly and thought, "Dad doesn't look cool at all in front of this family, more like a wild kid." Soon after, servants arranged reclining chairs in the shade reserved for the Rogato family. Laurencia sat down, waving and cheering loudly. Dad? Dad is the best. Laura will cheer for you with all her might. Seeing this, Rogato got even more excited, blowing kisses toward his daughters. That's my girls. Wait just a moment. Anastasia was very happy in the comfortable embrace of her brother Damien. Dad's participation was a bit strange, but I'm curious about the match. Judging from the Knights' reactions and how Dad treats them, he definitely has great skills, but it's hard to imagine. Meanwhile, below the stage, Roberto raised both hands, face beaming, "My youngest kid." The flag fluttered in the wind, the signal sounded, and the referee declared the match started. Everyone's eyes focused on the arena where Rogato and Ken's first match was underway. The two stood facing each other, each holding an identical wooden sword. Rogato twisted his wrist, swung his sword toward his opponent with a deep but confident voice. "Good luck." Ken responded seriously, "Yes." Rogato's sword was raised with cold eyes and a fierce spirit very different from before. At that moment, Anastasia leaned forward slightly, eyes wide as she watched her dad from afar, silently thinking, "He looks completely different now." Even from afar, she felt threatened. Just as Anastasia thought, Ken was extremely serious, unable to hide his panic when facing Rogato's cold gaze and intimidating presence in an instant. Rogato lunged forward, attacking with his sharp and powerful sword strikes. His speed, strength, and defense all reached a high level that others barely noticed. Rogato attacked while gently instructing, as if training more than competing. "Over here, pay attention." Ken was sweating profusely, replying repeatedly, "Yes, sir." The strength gap between the two adults was so big that Rogato still had time to casually say, "Let Ken focus on the lower body and keep his balance." Anastasia wondered if this little guy was competing or training. She didn't know how big the skill gap was. They didn't even seem to think this was a competition. She silently guessed it would end soon. Indeed, less than a minute later, Ken's wooden sword was knocked high into the air. The whole audience held their breath as it plunged into the ground in a distant corner. Ken was stunned, then took a heavy breath. "I lost." Ken lost along with Rogato's proud demeanor. Excited, he raised both hands to the sky with a bright smile. "My little treasure. Cool dad, huh?" Anastasia looked at him and felt a headache coming. If he didn't ask, I might still consider it dad. The loudspeaker announced in the next match, Mikai would face a knight 10 years older than him. Mikai held his sword ready. Perhaps realizing the size difference as soon as the flag was raised, he quickly approached and launched an attack, exploiting the panic. He knocked the opponent's sword aside and won the first round. Anastasia admired quietly. If it went on longer, it would definitely be disadvantageous for Mikai. He really had excellent fighting skills. But at that moment, she frowned slightly. Was this good luck or bad luck? Rogato smiled at Mikai with an excited look. He spoke while lightly raising his sword. "Show me your skills, little knight." Anastasia's heart tightened. She whispered because the opponent in the second round was her own father facing tall Rogato. At this moment, Mikai felt an overwhelming, suffocating pressure. His eyes froze, utterly focused. Without hesitation, Mikai chose to attack first again. He dashed forward like a sparkling purple lightning bolt that dazzled the eyes. Anastasia held her breath, watching eyes never leaving her father. Rogato's face remained calm as usual, showing no sign of pressure. Indeed, Dad was very relaxed. Damien next to her couldn't help but smile proudly. "Our dad really is amazing." Anastasia nodded in agreement. Laurencia, sitting beside them, also cheered excitedly, "Keep it up." Watching the arena, Anastasia thought to herself that he probably knew he couldn't beat her father. Instead of feeling discouraged, he still gave his all to keep up with Dad. Though exhausted, Mikai continued to deliver precise strikes. Strong hands, unwavering gaze. Anastasia was deeply moved. This was the innate talent of a swordsman just 6 years old. He was very determined to win. Maybe in 15 years he would reach the level her father was at now. And in 25 years he would become the greatest knight on this continent. Anastasia's gaze gradually dimmed. By then she probably wouldn't be here anymore, so she wouldn't know. "I won't live past 20, it's a pity. So I stopped training disciples too." Anastasia thought silently, recalling past lives. "There were people who wanted to become stronger. I taught those who came to me regardless of age or status. I never once saw my disciples grow as I wanted because I died before witnessing it." She closed her eyes and sighed. Or maybe they betrayed me. Truly, they didn't appreciate someone else's heart. Anastasia silently resented taught. 10 people, 8 stabbed me in the back. 1 died young, and the last died from a prolonged surgery. She quietly chuckled bitterly, mocking herself. My life has had quite a few ups and downs, huh? Besides, habits really are scary. On the battlefield, Mikai still fought tenaciously. Anastasia continuously observed and evaluated each move. Slight power concentrated on the left shoulder. A very solid foundation, but sometimes wasted unnecessary effort. The control was excellent. Considering the sharpness of the sword tip, it seemed he had experience facing others. He had innate ability, but that body. The best way was to awaken the magic he had and combine it with his swordsmanship. She clenched her small hand. Maybe I still want to leave something behind. I saw my silent and attentive little sister. Damien blinked, then teased, Anastasia really likes Mikai, huh? I guess you have to join in so I can see how cool you are. Anastasia shouted in panic. No, it's a misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. Why would I like that kid? I have to grow up quickly. She flustered, both embarrassed and babbling. Not about eating, cooking more. Damien didn't understand. Are you saying I'm cool? Cooler than Mikai? Anastasia tilted her head, looking at her brother. Why? Asking something so obvious? Damien smiled happily. If so, that's a relief. I wonder if Mikai would be disappointed if he heard that. Anastasia teased him. She looked at her brother's bright smile. Long trembled slightly. I feel this feeling again. The images of Laurencia and Tesla appeared in Anastasia's mind. In this life, I want to live with my family. I thought just having motivation was enough. She recalled the image of a mysterious person wearing a white cloak who appeared in her dreams since the day she met the strange baby in her dreams. That feeling kept tightening and urging me to wake up, making me greedy to stay longer with the ones I love to accomplish it. First, I have to investigate that suspicious kid. The sound of clashing swords rang sharply. Mikai's wooden sword fell to the floor. A small but firm voice rose from the middle of the arena. I surrender. Anastasia widened her eyes, looking at Mikai. Leventis landed 2 hits on Cha, but he was eliminated in round 2. At this moment, Rogato was rubbing Mikai's head and praising, You've improved a lot. Mikai replied softly, Thank you, amid thunderous applause and admiring gazes from the stands. The final results were announced just as everyone expected. The winner of the martial arts tournament is Cha. Anastasia thought silently and tightly held her sister Laurencia's hand. The 3 siblings held hands, carrying fresh bouquets as they walked toward the stage, where the winner was standing, waiting softly, calling, Cha sees his 3 lovely children. Then his face suddenly lit up. His voice tinged with affectionate coaxing, My children. Laurencia ran into Cha's arms, hugging him tightly, saying, Cha, you're so cool. Lara's father is the best. Rogato laughed happily. Wow, is that really my daughter? Anastasia also raised her bouquet and spoke. Bibo chimed like a small bell. Dad. Rogato paused briefly, then gently bowed to accept the bouquet from his youngest daughter's hand. His face slightly flushed with emotion. Then Rogato wrapped his arms around all 3 of his children, his voice hoarse but full of happiness. This year I'm very happy. My kids are so adorable. Cha had shown his wonderful side to his beloved children. Damien frowned and added, I'm not a kid anymore. Laurencia, in Cha's arms, smiled happily. Yes, Cha is the best. Mikai nearby noticed Anastasia's awkward expression and whispered with a smile, When will the little lady stop pretending not to hear? Tagato was still excited and dreamy as usual. The martial arts competition had many developments. Later, I will continue to receive more congratulations from you all. That La from afar couldn't help but laugh at the noisy scene, then went straight over, hitting her husband a few times. Keep some dignity. It ended at the moment Cha was hit 3 times by his mother. But while the atmosphere was still filled with laughter, the surroundings around Anastasia gradually blurred. A vague, strange voice sounded as if from deep memories. My master misses you very much. At the tavern table, amid thick smoke from hot grilled meat and the aroma of cold beer spreading, the atmosphere was lively. The subjects were very excited to be treated free by the Duke. Thinking about getting free meat and wine, the Duke was the best. They even mentioned Anastasia, the Duke Rogato's youngest daughter. Is it because the Duke's youngest daughter is attending the festival this year? It's really interesting, isn't it? While everyone was still eating, a warm, deep voice sounded both as a reminder and encouragement. After the April festival is the busiest time for farmers. This holiday will soon be over. Just eat to have strength to work. Anyway, while eating, they chatted lively and wondered, between the Duke and the Duchess, who do you think the youngest daughter resembles more? A seemingly casual question immediately caught everyone's attention in the tavern. Those two were talking to each other. One said, he had thought about this before. Instead of having lunch, I don't know. I think she resembles the formula more like the older kids. The other person immediately retorted, you can't be sure. This time will be different. Just then, the tavern door flew open. Someone rushed in loudly reporting, the Duke's parade has arrived. Anyone who wants to see, hurry outside. Those who had been chatting moments ago now looked at each other in shock. All the guests in this tavern immediately poured outside to see the Duke's parade, and more importantly, to catch a glimpse of Anastasia's face. Let's go outside and see, which made the restaurant owner exclaim helplessly, where are you all going? What about the customers? Outside, the crowd jostled to grab the best spots. Someone shouted loudly, wait for me, look! A firm voice rang out, I told you! This time will definitely be different. And then their wish came true. They got to see Lord Rogato's youngest daughter with their own eyes, a petite girl with jet-black hair and ruby-red eyes, the perfect copy of Lady Thet La. Anastasia excitedly recounted, after the parade ended, because he was in a very good mood, Father provided a lot of meat and wine to the people in the territory. Father even rode in the open carriage. Rogato and his daughter Laurencia both looked very enthusiastic. He laughed out loud, I can't miss the festival that my daughter awarded me. Meanwhile, Damien and Anastasia both felt awkward about that. Anastasia sighed helplessly, that's quite a reasonable excuse. As long as Father is satisfied, that's all that matters. Lara looked like a little princess, always embarrassed for those two. The people were even more excited. They whispered to each other, let's work really hard this year. Only he can care about us from one spring to the next. Such a kind formula, so surely the young lady will be very lovely when she grows up. Hearing those praises and excitement, Anastasia thought silently, how interesting. Someone shouted in the crowd, of course! Where else could you find a cuter little lady? Anastasia looked at Rogato. He was happily receiving flowers from a villager, and she thought, I've never seen a duke mingle so well with commoners. The radiant smiles on everyone's faces. Through this festival, the Duke solved the people's exhausting problems. At the banquet table, the aroma of grilled meat and food spread. Anastasia thought for many reasons the Duke had filled their stomachs. That's why everyone was so happy. It's been a long time since I've seen such a worthy leader. She closed her eyes and quietly pondered, if I were the leader, maybe they'd never see me, unless I went out alone. Lost in thought, suddenly a bouquet of white and yellow flowers was presented before her. Anastasia startled, is that a bouquet? Lancelot appeared with a gentle smile, handing the flowers to Thet La. This little girl wanted to give flowers to Lady Thet La. Anastasia wondered silently. The knight who participated in the tournament should be resting by now. Why is he here? Thet La smiled as she accepted the bouquet. Oh my, such a beautiful flower. Thank you. Anastasia beside her stammered, thank you, Lancelot. He replied softly, it's my duty. Thet La cared, you should go rest. Hearing that, Lancelot scratched his head shyly. No, lady. If I rest too long, I'll feel restless. Anastasia silently observed, thinking, this Duke's knight is really loyal. In my past life, when I was a knight, I never acted like this. She nestled in Thet La's arms and whispered softly, as long as you don't betray and protect your lord well, that's enough. Then in her mind, fragmented memories began to flood back. If I show my skills, whether they are nobles or kings, even if they tremble with fear, they will still keep me by their side. Anastasia closed her eyes, remembering someone who always watched over her and begged her not to die. Even if it was a selfish reason, the fragmented memories drifted through Anastasia's mind. That was the image of a girl who once said to Anastasia, you, if you die, who will protect me? At that time, Anastasia replied, if I don't die, the princess will be the one to perish. Is that okay, princess? The princess stammered, but I'm very scared. Anastasia smiled reassuringly. It's okay, the princess will still live well without me. Anastasia recalled the cranky, grumbling princess was only 10 years old, and honestly, she felt some affection for her. She quietly wondered, even though she had placed many protections on her before she died, would the princess grow up safely? Anastasia hugged the bouquet tightly. Strangely, she had never thought about any event like this before. She whispered with a choked voice amid chaotic thoughts in the moment close to death. Why do the faces of the people she worries about appear? Anastasia looked into the void. It didn't matter, it was just a memory, better not to let it affect her future. She seriously considered it seemed she could use her power sooner, so she needed to summon an assistant immediately. While Anastasia was still planning her future, a familiar voice suddenly sounded. Why do you look so serious, baby? I won the first round. Do you think I'm cool? Anastasia frowned and sighed. Mikai's sudden appearance startled her, causing her to drop the milk bottle. She muttered, "When did he come here?" Mikai tilted his head, looking at Anastasia, and said, "What should I do so you can say I'm as cool as your brother? I had to practice baby-holding skills." Anastasia sighed helplessly. "Did you really practice that skill?" Mikai quickly caught the bottle and handed it back to her, smiling gently as he said, "A baby is still a baby. Hold it tight, or it will fall." Mikai smiled teasingly. "Besides, I want to hear you say I'm cool. If I defeat the Duke, will you say I'm cool?" Faced with such temptation, Anastasia turned her face away silently, thinking if he hadn't said that, she probably would have already praised him how cunning she was. Time passed very quickly, the post-festival party went smoothly, and before she knew it, May was almost over. May 14th. Anastasia's lower front teeth had grown in how tiny they were. The servant brought some toys and eagerly awaited her little darling. Anyway, should I say the baby is quite confused? And today, May 31st, Anastasia finally could climb onto the sofa. Unfortunately, I couldn't witness it myself. To celebrate, we held a small party in the evening. Petlaw wrote this and gently lifted a cup of chamomile tea, sighing softly. "Anastasia is almost 11 months old, how fast she's growing." She whispered nostalgically, "It would be better if she grew up a bit slower." In the warm room, little Anastasia was sleeping soundly, but suddenly opened her eyes, quietly staring at the ceiling. She cautiously sat up, glanced at the servant still dozing on the chair. "Great, just as I thought she's asleep." Anastasia smiled, thinking it was like when she learned about the festival, though she didn't expect them to celebrate because she could climb onto the sofa. A celebration for the youngest. Learning to climb on the sofa, this aspect of our family is so new. Looking at the servant, she smiled softly, feeling more relieved. Because of that, she believed everything would be easier than planned. The servant was dozing on the chair from exhaustion, having prepared for the party. In the dim room, a blue light flared around the small figure. Red eyes gleaming sternly, black hair fluttering in a fierce vortex. Anastasia raised her hand, her clear but powerful voice rang out, "Now it's time I summon you." The light burst from her small hand as if tearing through space. Blue light appeared. Brilliant blue light flashing through the silent night through the tall window of the isolated room deep in the dark forest. The window frame seemed to emit magical light, illuminating a patch of the dark night sky. From within that light, a pair of huge wings made of golden feathers slowly appeared, each feather lightly fluttering, as if falling from the heavens. Amid the golden light, a small figure darted out, tail-waving claws dancing in the air. A gentle voice sounded from somewhere, both joyful and moved. Demon King Choco rushed into Anastasia's arms. "I've missed you so much." Anastasia's voice echoed. "Long time no see, my information-gathering assistant Choco." Choco looked at Anastasia and yelled as if abandoned for a century. "I've waited for your summoning for 25 years. Demon King, don't you want to see Choco?" Anastasia. "I've missed you so much, Demon King. I always think of you whenever I look up at the sky. Do you know how lonely I've been?" Anastasia quickly covered her ears, thinking to herself, "If I say I don't want to see you because you're too talkative, you'll freak out." She sighed. "I have another special ability, which is I can summon something I used in my past life." The image of Choco appeared in Anastasia's mind. "I met Choco in the 13th life when I was the Demon King." Anastasia recalled the past, sitting quietly in the dark, gloomy great hall, where the dim light from a magic lamp fell on the cold walls. "He was my news assistant. You have been with me through that entire lifetime, Choco." The Demon King wondered why he was called Choco. Anastasia's voice echoed in the silent space, "Because you look like my favorite kind of chocolate. Then I want to eat it too. You'll be in big trouble if you eat it. And in the 99th life, everything was so troublesome. For 20 years, I couldn't do anything, not even gather news." Choco jumped onto Anastasia's head with a whining voice. "Demon King, why don't you pet Choco?" "Choco is very cute." Anastasia helplessly said, I can't pet you if you're sitting on my head, Choco. Anastasia looked at Choco and thought silently, even though I have my own circumstances, my nosy dog must be very lonely. She petted her dog. The only one she could talk to about her long past lives was Choco, who also made her worry. Anastasia softly called Choco. Choco responded, Yes, Demon King. Anastasia whispered, Someone has entered my dreams. Hearing this, Choco immediately jumped up and shouted, What, the Demon King's dreams? Choco circled the dark space, trembling. Is it a nightmare or hell? He asked cautiously, looking around. Anastasia helplessly said, No, it's just an ordinary place. He looks like a three-headed dog. Choco clutched his chest, muttering, Who dares to enter the Demon King's dreams? Choco couldn't stay calm anymore. So all I have to do is find that shameless bastard, right? Anastasia instructed. That's right. I also want you to gather some information about this world. Choco suddenly wondered why under the quiet sunset. Choco trembled and landed on the cold ground, eyes full of tears, looking at the once undefeated, lying, motionless Demon King. You said you wouldn't live a hard life anymore. Didn't you promise Choco you would live a comfortable life? That was a promise to Choco 100 years ago that you would never suffer illness again. In a pitch-black room with heavy curtains blocking all light, a child screamed in panic. Two women chased after in panic, the air thick as if signaling a looming disaster. Choco sat alone in the dark. That promise has been my belief for 20 years, even though I never met that person. Do you know, but I don't mind. The image of a little girl clutching her head appeared in memory. Choco doesn't like this. Every time the Demon King suffers hardship and people are saved, Choco doesn't like it at all. Anastasia gently looked at Choco. He's pained on my behalf, but I really don't mind at all. I have faced many betrayals in past lives. I have faced many hardships to save myself. She recalled the Rogato Duke's family, but they gave her their love without expecting anything in return. Should she say it was compensation for the past 11 months? I want to protect them until the last moment. Anastasia gently hugged Choco. I do this because I think it's what I need to do right now. Choco sniffled. You always say that. Anastasia continued. Later you can just stand back and watch if you want. But this time I need you. Choco's eyes widened in curiosity. Really? Anastasia replied. Really? That's what I want to do. So I want you to do those things for me. Choco flapped his wings hard, I understand. As the Demon King's capable assistant, Choco will obey. Choco will serve you. Under the dim moonlight, Choco dashed across the night sky, beginning his mission. Then Choco brought back a map based on the information he had gathered for me. In this world, there is an empire with two kingdoms, the Holy Land Kingdom and the Divine Force Kingdom. The Magical Empire, the Neutral Kingdom. The Empire remains cautious. Our family includes both large and small nations, as well as those in the Holy Land where the Pope is king. Anastasia pondered, her voice echoing in the dense magical atmosphere, as if recounting an ancient truth, a familiar world created by those with divine power and magic. In the dim light, two figures stood back to back, a cleric praying in the light, a mage lifting a magical orb, opposed yet connected like light and darkness, a place where inner power does not exist. In a world where magic and divine power rarely coexist peacefully, there is a strange kingdom standing outside those rules. The narration slowly rose amid flickering flames. It is said that the kingdom of Pasan belongs to our family. The Duchy of Enderblang recognizes both magic and divine power. Perhaps that's why they say there's a magic tower near the Duke's domain. An image of a tower appeared. A magic tower in a kingdom not part of the Empire famous for magic. The investigation is ongoing because the Empire has ambitions to control the entire continent. The appearance of this magic tower is very important. Maybe there are still some secrets hidden. Anastasia, being fed by her attendant, thought quietly, There's a reason I don't feel comfortable right now. Choco sat on the bed looking gloomy. Sorry, Demon King. Choco couldn't find anything else. Besides relying on Choco, I have also tried to investigate the intruder more but found nothing. Anastasia sighed. I want to explore the Empire now, but I can't, because my power limit only allows me to investigate within the kingdom. She continued eating, chewing, while thinking maybe there's no intruder anymore. Only useful information for me is being collected. The attendant kept feeding her spoonfuls of food. Young lady Anastasia accepts each spoonful. Still thinking, don't worry too much. My mother told me that. Anastasia thought quietly. Lately, I've been working very hard to grow up quickly. Walking, climbing on the sofa, practicing pronunciation, and many other things, unlike diligent children who like kids. My mother, Tesla, is very troubled by Anastasia's diligence. Why does my little daughter keep exhausting herself? She said that when she saw Anastasia constantly absorbed in her books. She sighed and placed a finger on the tip of her nose. Anastasia smiled gently. My mother wants nothing more than for me to grow up healthy. She hopes I will be her baby for a long time. Just that one sentence reassured Anastasia. Thank you, Mom, for making me less worried. She thought as if her mother could truly understand her. Things have been better these past 2 months, so I feel confident to believe it will be the same in the future. Choco, beside her, quietly rejoiced, seeing Anastasia's comfort. This is the first time I've seen the Demon King so relaxed. Indeed, the Demon King is the best, and Choco is the most important to the Demon King. As soon as he said that, Choco jumped adorably onto the head of the maid, making Anastasia burst out laughing. The maid, seeing the young lady laugh, became excited. Oh my God, young lady, Anastasia is laughing because of her skill at feeding her baby. Seeing the happy maid, Anastasia thought the reason she smiled was because the maid was just too cute. What should I do? I've been practicing it since the festival. Her uncle, seeing the maid like that, wondered what's wrong with her. Anastasia whispered, ignore her. Even if it's a misunderstanding, there's no need to resolve it. Light quietly slipped through the dome, shining on Anastasia's golden embroidered cloak. In that silent scene, a small winged dog glided through the air as if it had never existed. Anastasia's whisper echoed from a deep corner of her mind. Choco in puppy form, it can only be seen through my own eyes. I told him to always be cautious, but even the wizard didn't notice his presence. Anastasia closed her eyes, so the good news is Choco can be safely by my side. The bad news is I'm the only one who can hear all this noisy commotion. Choco covered his mouth with both hands, muttering while looking at Anastasia. But she's so weird. Anastasia replied softly, things should be that way. Just as Mikai squatted down and asked the little one, when did you get a puppy? Anastasia widened her eyes. No way, how could he see it like that? She hurriedly said to turn her into a stuffed bear. Anastasia wondered even a witch couldn't recognize it. He can see it, right? She turned her face away, pretending not to know. Mikai saw Anastasia didn't answer and shifted his attention to Choco. Is it a stuffed bear? Just as Mikai's hand was about to touch Choco, Anastasia panicked and shouted to catch his attention. Although she didn't know why he could see it, she couldn't let him touch it. Mikai turned to ask Anastasia, is it a stuffed bear? Having no other choice, she nodded. He looked at Anastasia and asked rapidly, do you like stuffed bears like this? Then do you like the stuffed bears Damien gave you? Last time he gave me many things like that, but I didn't like them. Facing Mikai's continuous questions, Anastasia just stammered to get through it. Mikai spoke as if without thinking, his voice light but piercing straight into her heart. So you don't like that kind either, right? She lowered her head, blinking rapidly as if doused with cold water. Demon King. Mikai suddenly asked again, so what do you think about a red dress? Making Anastasia confused why suddenly changed the subject to dresses. Mikai smiled gently at her. You don't like Ruby, do you? I like it because it looks like your eyes. His words left Anastasia standing silently speechless. She turned her face away, thinking he would get noisy again if she answered him. That's what my intuition tells me. From afar, seeing Anastasia turn away with the golden ball, Mikai quietly followed without leaving her side. So you keep rambling like a radio broadcast, I think you'll like it. How about a little yellow stuffed chick? Girls say they like yellow. Anastasia was helpless. She wasn't hungry, but he kept firing like a radio station. She glanced at Choco, lying motionless on the ground, unable to believe the information Choco just brought back. It was information from a conversation along with Mikai's cold expression, I have no interest. Choco had collected this conversation and brought it back for Anastasia to see. In that image, Mikai looked very cold, with eyes always indifferent like a piece of wood. But now Mikai was smiling, holding up one finger and asking, what do you think about having your own piece of jewelry? Looking at this chatty and persistent attitude of his, she couldn't believe this was the young Count Mikai Leventis, the one famous for being indifferent, a child only absorbed in his own world without uttering a word to others. Mikai Leventis, as he once said, could walk at 6 months old, but couldn't babble a word by the time he was 1. The Duke and Duchess were very worried. The three of them quietly followed a young doctor hurrying with a medical case, a pale-robed cleric, an old man with a cane full of experience, and a nun holding a lantern to light the way. Anastasia softly said, I heard they called a famous priest and a doctor to make sure nothing was wrong. Thanks to that day, I realized my family wasn't the only one like this. Little Mikai only focused on his book, making his mother sigh. But luckily, right after that, he spoke his first words. Mikai said, Mama, Papa, that's what he said. Rumors about Mikai's family gradually spread. There was also a rumor that the Duke's family was thrown into chaos because of this sudden event. Mikai still lived in his own world. However, he was famous for only speaking when necessary. After that event, and until another incident happened. That was an incident 2 years ago. Mikai called out in despair, "Mama, Papa." It's said that after his parents' death, he became even quieter. Duke Leventus entrusted Mikai. Perhaps Duke Leventus sent Mikai to our duchy. Rogato patted his head, not just for teaching the heir. The image of 2 children smiling happily appeared in an environment with friendly adults and peers. This will give him time to live like other children. Can Mikai live true to his age without lacking affection or character? Mikai and Anastasia's sister have something going on. But strangely, why does he seem so awkward around his sister Laurencia? With pink hair and a lovely face, his sister Laurencia is very friendly. So I think he should be able to easily make friends with her. Mikai once told Anastasia that he doesn't talk much when he comes here, maybe because he's shy. Choco's eyes showed worry. Choco also said he didn't know the details well. You say there's too little information. Anastasia hugged the ball, thinking to herself that he said very little anyway. She felt helpless in front of the chattering person sitting there. But how the heck is he here shooting armor? Let me hear that. Suddenly Mikai shouted, "Hey kid!" He squatted down, arms crossed. Right now, I really want to hear you say I'm cool and also want to see your smiling face. Can you help me out a little? Seeing this gentle attitude? Anastasia was cautious at first. If he's giving me a gift for this reason, I'll have to refuse. What are you asking me to help with? Mikai tilted his head, calm voice but eyes hiding a bit of concern. Your birthday's coming up soon. I'm thinking about what to give you as a gift. What do you think? This question stunned Anastasia. Her birthday. Images of the Rogato family flashed through her mind. I see I was born as the youngest in this family. It's been almost a year, just 1 year, but I feel like time has been wasted. Thinking about her birthday, Anastasia's face showed worry again. Her life in each lifetime never exceeded 20 years like a curse, so every passing year felt like wasting her scarce time. While she was lost in thought, a servant appeared waving and calling, "Miss, the young Duke is ready for a snack. Please come inside." Anastasia stepped toward the servant. Mikai hugged the golden ball following the servant and asked, "Isn't Miss Laurencia with him?" Mikai was puzzled. "Didn't she come here?" she whispered curiously. "I told Miss Laurencia to call them in early." At that moment, Laurencia's figure was silently standing behind a tree. Rewinding to earlier, when the maid asked Laurencia to find Anastasia in the garden. "Miss Laura, the little miss is playing in the garden. Could you invite her to come for a snack?" Laurencia was happy then. "Yes, I can do that." She skipped off, mumbling, "Snack time for Sasa and Lara." But as she reached the last steps leading directly to the garden, she suddenly stopped and didn't move forward. Laurencia's eyes showed a hint of panic at the scene before her. Before her was Mikai gently comforting Anastasia. Seeing Mikai's happy, smiling face when facing Anastasia, that joyful smile was different from his usual cold demeanor. When Laurencia first met Mikai, she happily waved, "Do you want to play? I'm Lara here." But Mikai's cold, indifferent voice replied, "Mikai Leventus family formula," he said coldly while walking away, ignoring her. "No, I don't want to. I still have class." "Damien, there you are." Laurencia stood there stunned. Many other times when Laurencia tried hard to introduce herself to Mikai, I'm Lara. Please call me Lara." But Mikai paid no attention and only addressed her formally. "Miss Laurencia." Before she could react, Mikai left coldly. Anastasia softly said as a conclusion, "Days passed with overlapping emotions and worries of each person. Time went on, and before she realized it, it was already the early morning of July 3rd, Anastasia's first birthday. She opened her eyes to greet the new day with birds chirping and lush green leaves outside the window. Little Anastasia with eyes full of disappointment. A year ago this summer, I began my 100th life full of disappointment. What should I say now? Even while being made up and dressed beautifully by the maids, she couldn't stop thinking. "I'm a little excited. Is it okay to feel this way?" Anastasia whispered. "Today is my birthday." She looked at herself in the mirror and murmured, "It's hard to believe how long it's been since I last saw this. No one cared for me, and I had no intention of taking care of myself." She recalled the past as every previous birthday felt like a limited time. It was even worse if I had a difficult life. Anastasia, wearing a pink dress, stood looking around, but now it felt different. Even she was quite surprised. She thought quietly, "Instead of being heavy and negative, I feel quite happy, as if my long-forgotten emotions have resurfaced." Maybe just hearing a birthday wish from my family is enough to fill this heart. Anastasia pondered this when the voice of Tesla suddenly shouted, "Come here, Anastasia, our hero. Which dress do you want to wear today?" Anastasia was startled by the beautiful and lovely dresses. She asked, "What are these clothes?" Tesla gently explained, "Anastasia, this is a very important party. From what Anastasia understood, the party is like holding an item from her first life, right?" Anastasia recalled the custom of the first life she remembered now. "I held a spool of thread but died before I was 20, though. I'm not sure if I remember correctly." "Wait, because I've lived nearly 2,000 years in total, right?" "Ha, whatever, I don't like it." Tesla continued, "They say the dress you choose for your first birthday will determine your future companion." She bowed to Anastasia, her voice gentle. "This companion could be your husband, a colleague, or maybe a friend. So when you were little, your mother picked a pink dress along with a 6-gem hairpin." "A pink dress and 6 gems, could it be?" Anastasia exclaimed. Her reaction moved Tesla. She clasped her hands over her mouth. "Just as I thought my daughter is so smart. Then your father was my companion." She gently stroked Anastasia's head. Anastasia said, "He is the one my mother could trust and love more than anything else. Also, I gave birth to this very beautiful youngest daughter." Tesla smiled softly, one hand lightly resting on the clothes rack. "So, Anastasia, the first dress you choose will surely bring you a trustworthy companion for the rest of your life." Anastasia stared at the dresses, her mind full of thoughts from another life. If someone else had told me that, I probably wouldn't believe it. No, I surely wouldn't have that luck. But she gently reached out to choose a dress as her mother spoke. Somehow it made me predict the possibility of this happening, even if just for a short time. Though I know very well these feelings aren't as scary as I thought. Seeing Anastasia had finished choosing, Tesla exclaimed in surprise, "Oh my goodness!" Anastasia focused on the dress she had miraculously picked. What I thought it was white. That dress shimmered in other colors like light shining on beautiful colored fabric with lace trimmed with 6 gems, amber, ruby, amethyst, garnet, and diamond. Different jewels, even the belt was decorated. An ordinary dress, but brilliantly adorned. Anastasia hugged the dress quietly, thinking she could almost see her mother's thoughts about her. Tesla stood there graceful in a light pink-purple dress. Anastasia whispered, "Maybe my mother wants me to have a trustworthy companion." She buried her face in the dress, taking a deep breath of a familiar scent. Her voice echoed as if through hundreds of lifetimes. "Maybe I was desperate as someone who has lived 100 lifetimes, but hope I never dared to wish for." Anastasia held the dress tightly. My mother brought them to bless me at this moment. Anastasia wore the pure white dress adorned with sparkling gems, the very one she had chosen earlier. 12 months since I began living in this mansion, Anastasia looked out at the lively party scene. Since my first babbling sounds, I have not been surprised by any kind of party anymore. But her eyes skimmed over the sparkling chandeliers, then the dazzling, colorful ribbons. Then her gaze stopped at the giant crystal statue holding a 6-gem jewel. Anastasia was stunned, exclaiming, "Is that me?" She craned her neck to look at the massive statue. This family is beyond imagination, seriously. Where did they get this from? A cheerful greeting from Mikai rang out. "Hello, Miss Anastasia." Sighing, "It really is a familiar ruby, sir," she thought as she turned away. "Let's go somewhere else quickly." Mikai hurriedly asked, "Don't you like it?" Anastasia looked up at the 5-tiered cake. It really is a beautiful and grand cake with 5 layers. What's on top of the cake? Judging by the red eyes, it's me. The sparkling items around made Anastasia feel like she was dreaming of a birthday filled with beautiful things. It felt like a dream. Rogato's deep voice sounded, "The whole family is waiting ahead. Anastasia, come here." In a dress like from a fairy tale, Anastasia quickly ran toward her family. Rogato hugged his little daughter and whispered, "I sincerely hope you have a happy birthday." Around them, the maids, knights, and doctors were all moved. "Please take good care of the young lady. Miss Happy First Birthday." Time passed so fast, I don't know how to thank you enough for letting me spend the whole past year by your side. A maid stepped forward gently and asked, "Is this the dress you personally chose for today, miss?" She spoke heartfelt wishes. "Just like that dress, surely good relationships will come to you." Anastasia looked around in surprise. This time, too, her small hand suddenly clenched. "Father must be rewarding me." In the lively atmosphere, Anastasia's voice rose filled with wonder and emotion. "But what occasion would call for this when everyone has sincere feelings for the Duke?" She whispered, "Now is the time to speak heartfelt wishes." Anastasia told herself, and indeed she had been added to this sincere bond. Didn't I know that? She lifted her head and smiled brightly. Bibo said, thank you, sis. Thank you, everyone. Every wish, every glance, every gift seemed to evoke an indescribable magical feeling. The first birthday party in this life was filled with wonderfully special things. Various types of fruit were prepared for her to taste. The famous royal orchestra played gentle melodies, and countless nobles she didn't know carefully paid respects to her. This is a gift sent from the Baron to celebrate your birthday. The Viscount sent you this gift. And here is a gift from the Countess. Anastasia thought, I thought I was familiar with all kinds of parties, but this, a party where I am the main character, is really different. Even though I'm at home, I feel really out of place. Rogato seemed to notice her confusion and stepped forward gently, saying, Our youngest daughter, Anastasia. He held out his hand to her. Can father have the honor of dancing your first dance with you? Anastasia was a bit stunned. Dancing with a 12-month-old baby was a bit strange, but she still agreed, so she nodded at her father. Father and daughter strolled together in the middle of the ballroom. The musicians changed the melody to a soft, emotional tune. Rogato suddenly knelt on one knee before Anastasia. Now his eyes were level with his daughter's, so Rogato gently took her small hand. Anastasia was a bit stunned, I see now. Father lowered his gaze to mine. The melodious tune floated through the air. The beautiful dress Anastasia had chosen suddenly fluttered in the wind. The dress billowed as her father lifted her high. Rogato smiled brightly. Our youngest daughter dances so well. Anastasia gave a slight glare. Really isn't all I did just hold my father's hand. Rogato laughed. Because you are my daughter, of course you'll dance beautifully. She thought, as long as father is happy, it's not a big deal. Laurencia raised her hand and shouted, Lara too! Lara wants to dance too, Sasa. Damien clenched his hand seriously and said, Father, I also want to dance with the youngest, so please don't monopolize her. Mikai stood nearby, eyes half closed, sighing. I also want to dance with the little lady. Rogato thought, it seems I want to monopolize my daughter's little hand. The woman shouted at the man opposite. Because my husband doesn't want to hold my hand today. Maybe I should dance with someone else. Rogato panicked. No, madam must hold my hand. Laurencia excitedly shouted, Great job, my mother! Rogato let go of his daughter Anastasia, and both Damien and Laurencia immediately ran over to hold Anastasia's hand, from afar. I'll dance with you, sis. Damien smiled and reminded Laurencia. You have to be a bit slower. Anastasia is still a little kid, so since Lara is her sister, she can dance a bit more slowly. At the same time, the talented musician changed to different tunes, and everyone danced together to the music. Until Laurencia far away recognized the familiar melody as the song she had sung last year. Wait! Laurencia and Anastasia admired her stamina, which was truly amazing. Anastasia sighed. Now let's take a little break. Mikai's familiar voice rang out. Little miss, will you dance with me? Anastasia. Of course I remember you. And there's also this one. Everyone at the party began clinking glasses and dancing together. Anastasia, with black hair and glowing red eyes in a sparkling dress, faced Mikai, who had golden blonde hair and glowing purple eyes. Over here, both Rogato and Tesla calmly moved with the music, while Damien reluctantly danced along to the childish rhythms at his sister Laurencia's request. Is this what I used to dance to when I was little? Suddenly, Anastasia smiled, and this smile was accidentally caught by Mikai. Little one, are you smiling now? Anastasia denied it. No, I'm not. But Mikai looked at her and seemed sure she was smiling. She shook her head softly. No, really. While they danced, Mikai whispered, Then I will practice harder in the future so I can dance so well it will make the little miss smile. Anastasia glanced at him thinking, he really doesn't know when to give up. She smiled. But even if his persistence can be a bit annoying, I don't hate it. Mikai held Anastasia's hand like family holding hands and danced with her. Her family gathered together like a reunion. Even though the party ended in the afternoon, her parents allowed the servants to enjoy themselves freely until late at night. Laurencia happily shouted, Look, she just ran over there! Rogato's voice trembled slightly. Really, I didn't see that. Because of that, her family spent the whole evening together like a reunion. Laurencia hugged Anastasia tightly. Lara is your sister, so she will take care of you. But wouldn't it be nicer if Sasha held hands with your brother and sister and walked together? Anastasia nodded. I'd love that. Every moment passed in the blink of an eye, leaving behind layers of warm and loving memories. Looking back, a year has really flown by. Screaming softly, she turned to look at Damien's gentle eyes. "Is that so?" Damien closed his eyes. His hoarse voice whispered, "Mom, I'm sleepy." Anastasia's voice also whispered, "Though there are still fears, they quickly became familiar with this warmth." "Let's go to sleep," she whispered, "even knowing that I swear to cherish and enjoy every day here." Rogato held Anastasia in his arms. "Tonight I will take you to bed." His warm embrace and gentle pats made Anastasia's eyes flutter closed. "Every time like this, I let my guard down," she whispered. "If I just fall asleep for some reason, it feels really uncomfortable." Then suddenly, the mysterious child in the white cloak appeared again. "Hello, Anastasia. Open your eyes." That bastard appeared again. Feeling the words echoing in her mind, he laughed. "Bastard, bastard sounds a little harsh." Light from the void shone down, lifting the swirling darkness like a stage curtain. He spread his white cloak, letting his silver hair flow out from under the hood. His voice soft as the wind carried a gentle, haunting tone. "Don't you remember me? After a long time, this door finally opened wide, so I thought you were inviting me in." Anastasia questioned, "I never invited you, so who exactly are you?" "Exactly?" He still smiled, his body glowing with a faint white light. "Have you forgotten me? That's quite sad." His small foot touched the surface of the lake, instantly transforming into a mature foot. Then he placed his hand on his chest. "How about this form? You must know me." In an instant, he transformed into a tall young man wearing a pure white cloak, his white hair falling loosely over smiling eyes. Anastasia widened her eyes, though unconsciously it was amazing that he could freely change his form. How strong he is. I don't know, nor do I know his tricks or who he really is. Seeing Anastasia's astonishment, he continued, "Should I give you a hint?" In the blink of an eye, Anastasia from afar looked down at her two hands in the dim space, pale purple light swirling like the ashes of an old memory. A girl with long hair wearing a light blue hoodie and a pleated skirt, her eyes wide open, reflecting an image both familiar and strange. Anastasia gently reached forward, whispering as if talking to herself, "This is my form in my first life." Faced with this sudden transformation, Anastasia couldn't help but ask aloud, "How do you know this form of mine?" He smiled smugly and replied, "I can easily recreate at least one of your old forms because I am the only one who truly understands you." Suddenly, he turned his back to Anastasia and walked on the calm surface of the lake. "It's almost time. Sorry for being rude last time." "Well then, the day you come to visit me," he said with an amused smile, "I will be waiting for Anastasia in her first life form." Softly, he asked, "What did you just say?" But he didn't answer and softly snapped his fingers, causing tiny water bubbles to ripple in the air. In an instant, Anastasia regained consciousness, held her head, and sighed. That crazy guy. Her forehead was sweaty and her head ached like being hammered. This dream was truly terrible. Looking at the maid beside her, Anastasia sighed and muttered, "But it seems this time it was just a short dream." It ended right in the night. The maid was still sound asleep. She tried to recall every detail, furrowing her brow. By the way that guy called my name right, through a beam of light that tore through the night. 3 young girls with school backpacks walked silently. Their uniform skirts swayed lightly with each step. Hair fluttered in the wind. The scene looked like a slow-motion old memory within a dream. Anastasia's voice echoed faintly as if coming from the depths of nothingness, just as she was about to wake. Though his voice was very faint, a moment of silence passed. Then she whispered, "That must definitely be my name in my first life." Anastasia tiredly closed her eyes. "I must not forget this. But I'm losing clarity because of the fever." Trying hard, she called Chaco. A green light flashed. Chaco appeared. "Yes, Your Majesty, Demon King." Anastasia closed her eyes and ordered, "Find the location of the one who just invaded my dream." Chaco bowed. "Please leave it to me. I will find him soon so you can rest." Anastasia tightened the blanket. Thoughts shattered in her mind. "I really can't take it anymore. That's right, I will faint. So come see me again soon. This time I will truly leave the door open for you. I still have many things to ask you." Time has passed quickly. 2 weeks later. Anastasia sat on a pale, pink round rug with intricate floral patterns. Her voice rose angrily. "That treacherous bastard really has no sense of order or respect at all." Anastasia whispered I deliberately let my guard down, yet he still didn't appear. Remembering the image of a small figure cloaked in a bright white robe, grinning widely. Hair messy, covering his eyes, a mischievous face. Her voice sounded full of blame. Thanks to someone, I got a high fever and the entire mansion fell into chaos. Do you know how hard it is to comfort my crybaby sister? Anastasia's voice rose gently and firmly as a reminder. Stay calm and handle everything. First, he is also a reincarnated person like me. She continued with a calm but angry tone. More than that, he could be a reincarnated person who's lived longer than me. If I accumulate more power, it will be easier to find and recreate the image of my first life. Anastasia clenched her fist, not from fear, but because a clear goal had just formed in her mind. That also explains why he understands me so well. If I meet another reincarnated person, I would want to approach them too. Her hand rested on the doll in front of her, whispering, but what if he's not a reincarnated person? From the void, sacred light poured down, covering the figure in the white robe. Behind him, a radiant halo shone breathtakingly but full of unease. In his hand, a doll lay still, eyes closed, as if peacefully sleeping in a dream with no escape. Anastasia used her second self. He is the one who caused my reincarnation. Her voice turned cold like an almighty god. Anastasia's eyes were blood-red, not blinking once. Her voice rang out angrily. Then he shouldn't have said he understands me. He is just an enemy to me. She sat there. Her gaze still followed the two dolls, silently continuing to think. But even so, I'm not sure. If it's the second case, then why did he come to see me right now? She dashed straight into the tangled fur. In a commanding voice, Demon King Anastasia quickly asked anxiously, Chaco, have you found it yet? But instead of the expected answer, Chaco just looked dejected. I'm sorry, Demon King. I can't find out who he is at all. Anastasia, gently scolding, reached out to pat Chaco's head. What about the other things? Did you find his location? Chaco replied excitedly. Of course, yes. If you gave me the clue and I still can't find him, I'd be so ashamed I wouldn't dare come back. At the foot of the long mountain range, Chaco was spreading its brown wings. The wind blew, making its fur ruffled. But its eyes shone brightly with unwavering faith and determination. It boasted a rather faint scent, but Chaco worked very hard. Chaco even crossed an entire mountain range. Anastasia frowned slightly. Crossed the mountain range. You mean the Ashen Empire, Chaco replied. Yes, exactly. But Chaco doesn't like that place because it's very strange. It raised its head. Its eyes were still bright, but its voice lowered as if recalling something. It was completely different from the pure and beautiful magical power of the Demon King. Before Anastasia appeared a dark black gate amidst a mysterious purple glow. A sharp, majestic black crown hovered terrifyingly enchanting. The information Chaco brought about the Ashen Empire was very suspicious in every sense. The strange magical power is the focal point of the struggle for dominance over an entire continent. Rumors about magical weapons and that damn name. Anastasia silently patted Chaco's head. She looked at the soulless doll in front of her. Her gaze was distant. Throughout the whole year, her destiny had grown dim, but she had never forgotten it. The apocalypse is approaching the world she was born into. She clenched her fists, her voice trembling with determination. I can't help but suspect that the Ashen Empire is the source of the looming destruction. Our kingdom is one of the countries in their sights. I need to be prepared. Anastasia stood up straight. Her voice was strong and decisive, not just to prevent destruction, but to protect the everyday life of my family. Until the very last moment, she told herself. Her hands clenched tighter because that was the only way to repay the care she had received. Suddenly, the door burst open. Laurencia appeared, her face pale with panic. The girl shouted loudly from afar. Laurencia panicked. Something big happened far away. We have to prepare immediately. Seeing Laurencia's panicked face, Anastasia's expression turned serious. Could this be the sign of the apocalypse? She hesitated but quickly regained composure. I haven't had time to prepare yet. First, I have to follow and observe the situation. Anastasia ran after her sister with a worried face, but just minutes later she showed her helpless, speechless face. Before Anastasia, Laurencia was struggling to get into the carriage. Damien was anxiously beside Laurencia, who joyfully shouted that a family vacation made everyone smile happily. But Anastasia remained silent. Rogato laughed loudly. Our Lord has chosen a place we haven't been to in 2 years. Damien, do you remember? Damien nodded. With Laurencia smiling brightly, Lara didn't remember anything at all. Anastasia sighed, watching the family happily talking. I was so tense I was dumbfounded. She blinked. Her eyes, like pink rubies, glimmered with curiosity. After all, a summer vacation with family, even in my first life, I had only heard about it from friends' stories. At this moment, Rogato looked out the carriage window and said loudly, "Kids, we're almost there!" "Look," the gentle Law asked, when she saw the girl silently thinking, "Anastasia, do you want to enjoy the scenery?" She was very excited and immediately nodded. Seeing that the lady lifted Anastasia up to the window with both hands so she could admire the view outside. "Be careful, you might slip." Outside, the sky was bright blue sunlight filtering gently through the branches, leaves falling softly in the light breeze, and the faint scent of grass and flowers made Anastasia feel strangely relaxed. She took a breath, murmuring softly with a tone of surprise and delight, "I feel excited. It's not really like me. The end of the world hasn't come yet, so it should be fine to enjoy a little." The carriage slowly approached the peaceful village. The scenery looked as beautiful as a painting that anyone would love. Binming didn't know that she would experience many unexpected things during this summer vacation. By then, their family had arrived at the Duke's domain in Enla village. Upon arrival, they were warmly welcomed. "Welcome, Duke and Duchess." The three village representatives stood solemnly and greeted, "Today, the young master and the young ladies have also arrived." Rogato politely responded, "The weather is very hot. Why is everyone already waiting outside like this?" The man who looked the oldest laughed and replied politely, "Please don't worry, sir. We have rested and are waiting for you all in the shade." He showed little emotion but remained courteous throughout. "Is that so? Then that's reassuring. I brought some ice for everyone. Please accept it." The village elder was very grateful and replied, "As always, we are very thankful. Because of this, no one has fainted from heat stroke, even in such hot weather." Anastasia sighed softly and exclaimed, "He really is a considerate duke." She didn't have the patience to stay and listen to this conversation. Anastasia turned on her heel and thought quietly, "I think this conversation will drag on." She quickly used her small, fluffy body to run around everywhere. "I have to practice walking on rough terrain to get used to it. The mansion is too neat and tidy, so I can't practice there." Anastasia seemed to sense something and suddenly paused, thinking, "Yet I feel like I just sensed 6 pairs of eyes behind me. Why do I feel like someone's watching me?" 3 middle-aged women behind fixed their gaze on Anastasia and took turns praising and greeting, "Oh, the youngest miss who was just born last year is already walking." The sound of the little girl's babbling was so pleasant. "How does the child walk so steadily?" One of them invited, "Young miss, come here. We will give you some delicious food." She looked up as if she suddenly remembered Madame Thetlaw's advice. "Don't talk to people you don't know." Anastasia thought for a moment, "Because my parents are nearby, it won't be dangerous." Yet she turned and walked away thinking, "I still have to obey my mother." The little stranger with her innocent small mouth refused, "No need." The women were rejected abruptly, but not saddened. Instead, they gushed praising the little heiress for inheriting Madame's pout. They didn't lose heart and took turns sweetly coaxing Anastasia, "We have fruits and sweets that children really like." "Just look at those chubby cheeks, young miss. Can we touch your cheeks once? If we just touch once, you won't lose that chubbiness, right?" She was exhausted by such flattering invitations and helplessly thought, "No, I just want to take a walk. Why do you people have to care so much?" Before she could get far, a hand suddenly grabbed her, spun Anastasia around, and pushed her toward those overly enthusiastic faces who kept calling, "Here's some fruit, little miss, over here." This made her anxiety suddenly surge. "Besides, I feel like I'm about to be eaten alive." From behind, Madame Thetlaw sat down next to Anastasia and whispered, "Anastasia, it's okay, you can go there." She looked at the woman before her and suddenly thought, "Mom." Anastasia looked at those in front of her. Her anxiety didn't ease much, but she reassured herself, "It's a bit scary to get closer, but Mom said it will be fine." Anastasia stretched out with all her tiny body, her 2 hands reaching out as if to accept their efforts so far. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but melt at the innocent and pure look that made them want to hug the little girl immediately. After a moment of emotion, they burst out one after another calling, "What did I just see? The young miss really does everything so special. She's still little, but already knows how to beg." Anastasia was puzzled. Her hands instinctively pulled back and thought, "You called me here first, so why are you acting so over the top now?" One of them handed her a piece of bright red watermelon and said, "This is for you. Hold it tight and eat slowly, or you might choke." Anastasia stared at the watermelon slice in her hand, still full of doubt. Eating this probably won't be a problem, right? After hesitating for a while, she finally chose to trust once more. As the small piece of watermelon melted in her mouth, Anastasia's mood strangely lifted. Could it be because I've been moving around too much? The sweet, cold taste was better than she had expected. The woman who saw this scene felt her heart brighten with joy. She happily exclaimed, "Oh, Chuchuama! The spirit is happy because the person has eaten well. The Duke probably hasn't eaten yet, but must feel full just from that." She looked at that delighted expression, stunned, and wondered how just eating watermelon could bring such joy. People who aren't even family members are feeling happy. Outside, Anastasia was still just a little girl who could only babble a few words and was spoiled by others. Whether or not she wanted to eat more inside, she still carried the soul of a deeply thoughtful person. I'm really living a very strange life. If in 100 lifetimes 99 were before and one remains, then that one remaining life is very strange. Anastasia finally relaxed a little. She leisurely savored the new piece of watermelon. Her mind gradually accepted it. Above all, she wanted to believe this one remaining life was normal. Looking at the watermelon slices glowing brightly under the sun as if painted by summer, Anastasia felt she somewhat understood, though it was a bit heavy because all the tones of these emotions were so bright and warm. The sky had turned to the harsh midday sun, and the whole family stood in front of a simple rustic house. We'll stay here for 2 days. Though simple and incomparable to their magnificent mansion, everything around, from the swing under the shade to the shimmering water by the riverbank, seemed to captivate them. All 3 of Rogato's children were drawn in by the surrounding scenery. Both siblings, Laurencia and Damien, were extremely excited, shouting together, "Hurry, hurry, let's go play in the water." Lecla's parent couldn't contain their excitement and replied, "All right, I brought clothes for the kids, so change quickly." Mom prepared them. Laurencia eagerly called out from inside the room, "Mom?" The girl wearing bunny ears on her head proudly showed off, "Lara is a little bunny." "It's a bunny." Damien stepped out with deer antlers, feeling shy, and whispered in mock reproach, "Mom, that's not fair." Anastasia stepped out wearing tiger ears that didn't at all match her personality. She looked up at the ears on her head, showing a brief look of embarrassment. "Isn't it usually dog or cat? Why am I a tiger like this?" But in contrast, Anastasia's older siblings really loved this look on her, praising it over and over. "So cute from afar." "From afar, it's a little tiger cub, right? That's our Anastasia. Growl and your big brother will catch you," they teased. Seeing this, Anastasia finally breathed a sigh of relief and thought to herself that it would probably be okay since her sister and brother seemed to like it. Suddenly, Rogato called out from behind, interrupting the atmosphere. "Come on, kids, we're going boating!" Hearing this, she almost couldn't believe her ears and turned around in surprise at the words, boating. When they arrived, she realized this was no ordinary boat at all. It was carved with animals matching the looks of all 3 kids today. After seeing it, Anastasia was even more excited and silently exclaimed, "How can this be such a waste of wealth?" Damien also stared blankly, unconsciously muttering, "So big, amazing, right? Anastasia, so cool." Hearing that, she couldn't help but nod in agreement. Just one word of approval from Anastasia made Rogato jump up like he'd found treasure. Watching all of his actions, she suddenly understood. She had heard that Dad really liked surprises. He was also pleased with our reactions. In contrast to their bewilderment, Laurencia immediately became excited and shouted, "Dad is the best!" at the sight of the simple yet money-smelling yacht. "Dad is so cool. Lara loves Dad the most." Every reaction from the kids from start to finish made Rogato happier than ever. He burst with joy and spun Laurencia around on his bicycle, speaking heartfelt words of love. Father loves Laurencia very much too. Of course, I also love Damien and Anastasia very, very much. Damien felt a bit overwhelmed by the extravagance and politely declined. "Father, you can play in the water alone without having to go on the boat, right?" Rogato gently set Laurencia down and softly replied that Damien could indeed do that by himself. But he neither quickly refused nor hastily agreed. Instead, he reached out his hand and gently asked again, "Do you think Damien wants to play with his siblings, right?" This question touched exactly on Damien's passion, forcing him to nod. Not sure how much time had passed, but the children's spirits hadn't diminished at all. A hand raised high, cheering with joy, it was none other than Laurencia, the little girl who got to sit in the cute little boat. Her mood became even more excited as she shouted, "Lara wants to sit in front. Father, go faster, go even faster." Rogato laughed and replied, "Dear, don't be too impatient." Laurencia pouted, turning to Father. "Lara wants to water slide, water slide." He indulged her, agreeing, "Slowly now, then water slide, my daughter." Now it was Anastasia's turn. Upon hearing this, she stopped fussing. She clenched her fists with determination and said sincerely, "Then Lara can wait." Rogato praised approvingly, "Exactly. Our Lara is such a cool and kind older sister, isn't she?" He gently set the boat down on the water and said, "Wait here a moment, okay?" Laurencia obediently replied, "Yes, father. Please come back soon." Suddenly, a leaf fell from above onto the water. Rogato placed each child one by one into the small, lovely boat. He looked at Anastasia and gently asked, "Have you been waiting long?" Suddenly, amid the quiet of nature, a violent wave surged from beneath the water, splashing water onto the two of them. Anastasia reflexively raised a hand to shield her face. She showed an irritated gaze and suspiciously wondered about this unusual strong gust of wind. Something wasn't right. Just then, before the water could settle, Damien's terrified scream rang out. Laurencia didn't realize when the small boat close to shore had drifted away at an unimaginable speed, causing her to panic and scream, "Father!" Instinctively, Anastasia called out to her sister. Damien became more and more frantic, screaming, "No, Laurencia, father, hurry!" Lancelot tried to stay steady amid the shaking around him. He anxiously said, "Hold on tight, young lady." Meanwhile, Anastasia struggled to endure with her small frame. She sensed something strange and thought, "The wind is blowing unusually strong." The small boat kept drifting amid the violent waves. Anastasia looked at the obstacles behind Laurencia and instinctively said, "There are many rocks here. If we hit them—" She finally couldn't hold back, stood up, and cast a spell. She quietly resolved in her mind, "My sister is in danger." Right after casting, the magical energy in Anastasia's hands, which had been growing, suddenly vanished. She was shocked to find that subsequent magic flows were always abruptly interrupted. "Damn, I can't use magic like I used to. Why is that?" Anastasia felt powerless but gritted her teeth to think of another plan. "I have to stay calm and cast a protective spell on my sister first." Seeing Laurencia frightened and curled up, a magical shield formed around her body. "If I can't stop the boat, at least she can reach father." Then the already fierce wind grew even stronger. Lancelot shouted a warning. The wind direction suddenly changed. Rogato struggled forward against the current. Despite his subordinates' worried advice, "Wait, your grace, it's very dangerous." He rushed forward recklessly and shouted Laurencia. Rogato stretched out his arm as far as he could. Amid Laurencia's panic, in a brief moment, he successfully grabbed hold of the boat. Immediately, Laurencia was scooped up and thrown into Rogato's strong arms. "Dad!" The little girl, as soon as she felt the warmth, became agitated and burst into tears, explaining, "Dad, the boat moved on its own." Lara didn't cause any trouble. He held Laurencia tightly in his arms, gently comforting her. "It's okay, everything's fine now, Laurencia, you didn't do anything wrong." "My daughter sat still just as I told her." Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Only then did Anastasia dare to exhale deeply. She silently thanked heaven. Anastasia glanced at the attitudes of those around her and reassured herself. "Look at them. Surely they didn't notice that I used magic. I know who's behind this." Exhausted from using magic, she still strained her mind to reason. "When my sister fell, I sensed a magical energy. Because when I cast magic, something unpleasant tried to overpower my body. That strange magic must have come from the one who invaded my dream. That damn bastard." She trembled, placing her hand on the side of the boat as if searching for support, then continued her thoughts. "He really wants to kill my sister. No matter what his purpose is, I will never forgive him. Never." The moment she firmly vowed to herself, Anastasia lost consciousness and fell down. She didn't know how much time had passed until she finally woke up. As soon as she regained consciousness, the first thing she did was think, "For 100 lifetimes, I have always had strong magic. I never thought my magic would hurt me in this lifetime. How many times have I fainted? Maybe I pushed myself too hard trying to control my magic." Feeling Anastasia's movement, Testa immediately jumped up excitedly. "Anastasia, you're awake!" The frail little girl lay in her arms and softly called out, "Mom." Testa emotionally stroked her head, thanking heaven. "My little Anastasia, my precious baby." She hugged Anastasia tightly and blamed herself, saying, "My dear child, I'm here now. You're in pain, aren't you? I shouldn't have let you stay out so long. You're still so young." She lay snugly in her arms. Her mind and heart involuntarily sank. It's not like that. Why does Mom blame herself instead of that bastard? Anastasia darkly scolded. "I will definitely capture that damn son of a bitch alive. How dare you ruin my family's warm trip?